Hello friends. Did you know that nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your interaction not only supports the channel's growth, but also helps these stories reach more people. Thank you all for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. That Monday morning, when I arrived at my Quantico office, the manila folder was waiting for me on my desk. On the front, written in faded burgundy ink, were 3 words: Red Room, 1998, reopened. I am Special Agent Marcus Vale. I have been with the FBI for 12 years. I've closed most cases, some remain unsolved, but none made me feel sick to my stomach just looking at the file cover. The Red Room case was the kind you hear about in bits and pieces during those hours when agents whisper in the hallways, the coffee tastes bitter on the night shift, and the fluorescent lights hum excessively. I'd asked Deputy Director Hayes why they were pulling it from the archives after 27 years. He'd looked at me with those tired eyes of his, the ones that had seen too many crime scenes, and said, "Because someone wants us to remember." Then he'd walked away before I could ask what the hell that meant. That should have been my first warning. Hayes never walked away from questions. He was a lifer, a man who'd built his career on answers. The file was heavier than it should have been. Not physically, though it was thick, easily 300 pages, but in the way it seemed to pull at my hands as I carried it to my desk. I remember thinking that was a stupid observation, the kind of melodramatic bullshit you tell yourself when you're already spooked. But I was spooked. The Red Room case had a reputation. I sat down, opened the cover, and started reading. The first victim was found on March 14, 1998, in a farmhouse outside Ashland, Virginia. Melissa Grant, 23, graduate student at UVA. She'd been reported missing by her roommate after failing to show up for 3 days. Local PD found her in what the report called a room painted entirely red. Walls, ceiling, floor, everything crimson. The paint was fresh, still tacky in places. Melissa was positioned in the center of the room, seated upright in a wooden chair, hands folded in her lap. No visible wounds. No signs of struggle. Cause of death? Asphyxiation, though the ME couldn't determine the method. There were no ligature marks, no petechiae in the eyes, nothing to suggest she'd been strangled or smothered. She'd simply stopped breathing. The second victim appeared 6 weeks later. David Ortega, 31, high school teacher from Richmond. Same circumstances. Another red room, this one in an abandoned warehouse near the James River. Same position, same cause of death, same absence of evidence. The only difference was the paint. Lab analysis showed it was a different brand, different batch, but the exact same shade of red. Pantone 186C, if you want to be specific. The color of fresh blood. By the time the 5th victim was discovered in September of 1998, the FBI had taken over from local law enforcement. The case file noted that Special Agent Riley Archer had been the lead investigator, partnered with Agent Lincoln Hayes. I'd heard of Archer. She'd retired back in 2003, moved to Montana, didn't talk about her bureau days. Hayes was dead. Suicide, 2001. Drove his car into the Potomac. The official report said it was depression related to his divorce, but the timing made me uneasy. 3 years after the Red Room case went cold. I flipped through the crime scene photographs. Each red room was different. Different locations, different dimensions, different light sources, but identical in their oppressive monochromatic horror. The victims all sat in the same wooden chair. Not similar chairs. The same chair. Archer's notes confirmed it. Forensic analysis showed it was the same piece of furniture, moved from location to location. Oak, mid-century construction, traces of different victims' DNA embedded in the grain. What made my skin crawl wasn't the victims' faces. They all looked peaceful, almost serene. No fear frozen in their expressions, no signs of terminal distress. They looked like they were waiting for something. That's what Archer had written in her notes. Subject appears to be in a state of expectant repose. Professional language for something deeply wrong. The investigation had consumed 2 years and found nothing. No fingerprints, no DNA from the perpetrator, no witnesses, no motive. The victims had nothing in common: different ages, different backgrounds, different cities. The only connection was the Red Room. And then, in December of 1999, the murders stopped. No final victim, no climax, no resolution. The case just ended. Archer recommended it be classified as cold and moved to archives. Her final report was dated January 3, 2000. I was 3 pages into her summary when I noticed something in the margin. A handwritten note, so small I almost missed it. "Check the photographs. He's getting closer." My desk phone rang. I actually jumped. The caller ID showed an internal extension. Records Division, Sub-Level 2. I picked up. "Agent Vale?" A woman's voice, older, with a smoker's rasp. "This is Archivist Patricia Brennan. I processed your request for the Red Room file." "I didn't make a request," I said. "Deputy Director Hayes assigned me the case." There was a pause. "That's strange. The request form has your signature from 3 days ago." I looked at my calendar. 3 days ago, I'd been in Detroit, testifying in a racketeering trial. There must be some mistake. Perhaps. She didn't sound convinced. "Agent Vale, before you proceed with the file, there's something you should know. When we pulled it from archives, we found discrepancies." "What kind of discrepancies?" "Photographs that weren't logged in the original inventory. Notes in handwriting that doesn't match either Archer or Hayes," and she hesitated. "There's a photograph dated March 2025, last month." My mouth went dry. "That's impossible. The case closed in 99. "I'm aware. I've worked in records for 32 years, Agent Vale. Files don't update themselves. Someone has been accessing this case, adding to it, and they've been doing it without authorization for over 2 decades. I pulled the file closer, started flipping faster through the photographs. The early ones from 1998 showed the Red Rooms empty except for the chair and the victim. But as I progressed chronologically, I started to notice something in the background. In the 4th victim's photos, there was a shadow in the far corner of the room. Just a dark smudge, easy to dismiss as a photography artifact. In the 6th victim's photos, the shadow was larger, more defined. By the 9th victim, the last one, the shadow had moved forward, now visible in the middle distance behind the chair. It looked almost human. "Agent Vale?" Brennan's voice pulled me back. "There's one more thing. The last photograph in the file, it's not from the original case." I found it near the back. A Polaroid, the kind we stopped using in the field back in the early 2000s. The image showed a red room I didn't recognize from the case file. Empty chair in the center. Fresh paint on the walls. But in the background, clear as day, was a figure. Dark clothing, average height, gender indeterminate. And where the face should have been, just a blur, like the person had moved at the exact moment the shutter clicked. Handwritten on the white border of the Polaroid, in neat block letters, "Marcus Vale, pending." I dropped the photograph like it had burned me. My hands were shaking. This was insane. This was someone's idea of a sick joke. Had to be. But who would have access to federal archives? Who could forge documents, plant evidence, manipulate a closed case file without triggering any security protocols? I need to see the original storage box, I said. Everything that came with this file. I'll have it brought up to Sub-Level 1 examination room, Brennan said. Agent Vale, be careful with this one. I've been here long enough to recognize a file that doesn't want to stay closed. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there for a long moment, staring at that Polaroid. My name, written in someone's hand, attached to a photograph that couldn't exist. I thought about calling Hayes, demanding to know what the hell he'd gotten me into. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the stubborn part of me that had solved cases when everyone else gave up. Or maybe it was something else. Something that whispered I was already part of this, whether I wanted to be or not. I gathered the file, locked it in my desk, and headed down to Sub-Level 1. The examination rooms were windowless, soundproofed, designed for reviewing classified material. Room 4 was waiting for me, door ajar, lights already on. On the steel table in the center sat a corrugated cardboard box, edges softened with age. The FBI seal faded nearly to invisibility. Patricia Brennan was waiting inside. She was older than I'd pictured, maybe late 60s, with steel gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. She nodded at the box without preamble. Everything's in there. Original evidence bags, field notes, even the cassette tapes from Archer and Hayes' recorded interviews. I've cataloged it all. Nothing's been removed since 2000. But things have been added, I said. Yes. She pulled out a small notebook, flipped it open. I found 5 items that aren't in the original manifest. 3 photographs, 1 cassette tape with no label, and a VHS tape marked only with the date, October 15th, 2024. 4 months ago. Has anyone watched it? I asked. No, I don't have authorization for that. You do. She pointed to a rolling cart in the corner where an old CRT television and VCR sat waiting. I had it bring this up from storage. Figured you'd want to see what's on it. I didn't want to see what was on it. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to walk away, to tell Hayes this case was compromised, contaminated, unsalvageable. But I was already moving toward the cart, already pushing it closer to the table. Brennan handed me the VHS tape. The plastic case was scuffed, well used. The label showed that date in the same neat handwriting from the Polaroid. I'll leave you to it, Brennan said. Lock the door when you're done. The security system will log your exit. Then she was gone, and I was alone with a box of evidence from a 27-year-old murder case and a videotape that shouldn't exist. I loaded the tape, the TV screen filled with static, then cleared to show a room, a red room. The paint looked fresh, gleaming wet under harsh fluorescent light. The wooden chair sat in the center, empty. The camera was stationary, probably on a tripod pointed directly at the chair. Time code in the corner read 22:47:33. Nearly 11 at night. For 3 minutes, nothing happened. Just an empty room, that red chair, the hum of the fluorescent lights barely audible through the TV's speaker. I was about to fast forward when the lights flickered. Once, twice, then they steadied. Someone walked into frame. They moved slowly, deliberately, and sat in the chair. Same position as the victims in the crime scene photos. Hands folded, back straight, facing the camera. They wore dark clothing, black jeans, black hoodie, hood pulled up. But the face was blurred, not pixelated, not obscured by shadow, blurred, like someone had taken an eraser to that part of the image, smudging it into incomprehensible shapes, but I could see eyes, dark eyes, staring directly into the camera, directly at me. The figure sat there for another 2 minutes, not moving, not speaking, just sitting, hands folded, staring. Then they raised one hand slowly, pointed directly at the camera, and mouthed a single word. I couldn't hear it, but I could read the lip movement clearly enough. Soon. The lights cut out. When they came back on, the chair was empty. The timestamp jumped forward to 23:03:17. 16 minutes missing. The tape ran for another 30 seconds, showing nothing but the empty room, then cut to static. I stood there, remote still in my hand, trying to make sense of what I'd just seen. This wasn't evidence. This was a message. Someone had made this, planted it in federal archives, and waited for me to find it. But how did they know I'd be assigned this case? How did they know I'd request the evidence box? Unless they were the ones who'd requested it. The ones who'd forged my signature 3 days ago. I ejected the tape, put it back in its case, and turned to the cardboard box. Time to see what else had been added to the file. I pulled on latex gloves and started removing items one by one, laying them out on the table. Original evidence bags contained the usual: victim personal effects, trace evidence samples, field notes in protective sleeves. Then I found the 3 photographs Brennan had mentioned. The first was a crime scene photo from the original case, victim number 3, taken in June 1998. But this print was different from the one in my file. The angle was slightly different, taken from a position closer to the doorway. And there, in the corner of the room, clearer than before, the shadow, more defined now. The suggestion of a human shape, but wrong somehow. The proportions weren't quite right. Arms too long. Head tilted at an angle that made my neck hurt just looking at it. The second photograph showed the same crime scene, same victim, but from another angle. The shadow was closer now, near the chair. I could almost make out details. What might have been a hand, the impression of clothing. The third photograph was newer, printed on modern photo paper. Same crime scene, same room. But this time the photographer had stood exactly where the shadow had been in the previous images. The perspective showed the room from that corner, looking toward the chair where the victim sat. And in the bottom edge of the frame, just visible, was the photographer's shadow on the red floor. It was the same wrong shape. Arms too long. Head at that awful angle. I put the photographs down carefully, suddenly aware of how cold the room had become. The HVAC must have kicked into a higher setting. That was all. Just cold air from a vent. But my breath was misting, just slightly, and the fluorescent lights seemed dimmer than they had been minutes ago. The cassette tape without a label was next. I found an old tape player in the evidence cart. Brennan had thought of everything, and loaded it. After a few seconds of leader tape, a voice came through. Female, middle-aged, speaking slowly and carefully. Field recording, red room case, supplementary interview. Subject wishes to remain anonymous. Recording date, December 17th, 1998. That was Archer's voice. I recognized it from the original case interviews in the file. "Can you describe what you saw?" Archer asked. A different voice responded, younger, nervous. "I was driving past the warehouse about 2 in the morning. I saw lights on inside, which was weird because that place had been empty for months. So I stopped, looked through the fence. There was a window on the second floor, and I could see red, just red everywhere, and someone was in there. Can you describe them?" Not really. They were just standing there in the middle of all that red. Not moving, but I got this feeling, like they knew I was watching, like they wanted me to see. What happened next? The lights went out, and when they came back on, maybe 5 seconds later, the person was gone. But the chair was still there, that wooden chair, right in the middle of the room. "Did you report this to the police?" "No, I drove away fast as I could, and I didn't come back to that area for months, but I keep thinking about it, about how they just vanished like that, and about how, before the lights went out, I think they waved at me. The tape ended. Archer's voice never came back to ask follow-up questions. Either this was the end of the interview, or the rest hadn't been recorded. I checked the cassette player counter. The tape had run for exactly 4 minutes. There were 26 minutes left on the tape. I fast-forwarded, listening to silence and the occasional pop of magnetic noise. Then, at the 18-minute mark, something else. Not voices. A sound. Low. Rhythmic. Like breathing. In and out, slow and steady. I turned up the volume. The breathing continued, unchanging, for 3 more minutes. Then it stopped, and a voice whispered, "Marcus," my name, in a voice I didn't recognize. Quiet, intimate, like someone speaking directly into my ear. I yanked the headphones off, my heart hammering. The tape player kept running, the counter ticking forward, but no more sound came through. I ejected the cassette, put it with the photographs, and took a long breath. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. Someone had access to evidence, to archives, to sealed federal cases. Someone who knew my name, who could manipulate recordings and plant evidence. Someone who'd been doing this for 27 years. Or something had been doing it. That thought came unbidden, and I hated how easily it arrived. I'm not a superstitious man. I believe in evidence, in forensics, in the rational explanation. But right now, standing in a cold examination room with evidence that defied logic, I felt something I hadn't felt since I was a child. Primal, unreasoning fear. I packed everything back into the box, logged it with the security system, and left the examination room. The corridors of Sublevel 1 were empty, lit by those same fluorescent tubes that seemed to follow me everywhere in this building. My footsteps echoed too loud against the tile floor. I kept thinking I heard another set of footsteps behind me, matching my rhythm. But every time I stopped and turned, there was nothing. Back in my office, I locked the door and sat in the dark for a while, just thinking. Hayes had said someone wanted us to remember. Who was us? The Bureau? Me, specifically? And remember what? A case from '98 that had never been solved, had ended without explanation, had left no answers. I pulled out the file again and read through Archer's final report more carefully. She'd been thorough, methodical. Exactly the kind of investigator you'd want on an impossible case. But reading between the lines, I could sense her frustration. She'd known there was something wrong about the Red Room murders, something that didn't fit the patterns of serial killers or organized crime or any other category the Bureau used. Her last paragraph stood out. Despite exhaustive investigation, no conventional explanation for these homicides can be established. Recommend case be archived pending new evidence or similar future incidents. Note: Agent Hayes and I both advise that any future investigation proceed with extreme caution. There are aspects of this case that remain unexplained. That last word had been added in pen, written over what looked like an erased word. I held the page up to the light, trying to make out what she'd originally written. The ghost of the letters was just barely visible. Dangerous. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. "You found the tape." I stared at the screen, typed back, "Who is this?" The response came immediately. "Someone who knows what you're looking for. Check the last evidence bag, the one that's sealed with red tape." I looked at the box Brennan had brought up. I'd gone through everything, hadn't I? But no. There, at the very bottom, underneath the cardboard divider, was a small evidence bag I'd missed. It was sealed with red evidence tape, the kind we stopped using 15 years ago. The label was blank except for a case number I didn't recognize. I opened it carefully. Inside was a folded piece of paper, edges yellowed with age. I unfolded it. A photocopy of a photograph. The original must have been in color, but this was black and white. It showed a man I didn't recognize standing in front of a house. Nice place, 2 stories, suburban somewhere. The man was smiling at the camera. Someone had drawn a red circle around him in marker. On the back, a handwritten note. Jacob Mailer. Built all 9 red rooms. Died November 4th, 97. 4 months before the first murder. I read it again, trying to process the implication. The man who'd allegedly built the crime scenes had died before the crimes were committed? That made no sense, unless someone else had used his work, had continued whatever he'd started. But who and why? My phone buzzed again. The house in the photo still exists. 4425 Fairview Road, Ashland, Virginia. Maybe you should pay it a visit. Why are you helping me? I typed. The response took longer this time. When it came, it was just 2 words. I'm not. Then the number disconnected. When I tried to call it back, I got a recorded message saying it was out of service. I contacted our tech division, asked them to trace it. They called me back 20 minutes later. The text had originated from inside FBI headquarters. Sublevel 2, the Records Division. From Patricia Brennan's desk phone. I called Brennan. She picked up on the first ring, sounded confused when I asked if she'd texted me. Agent Vale, I don't even know your cell number. And I'm 71 years old. I don't text. Someone used your phone to send me a message. That's impossible. I'm sitting at my desk. No one's been down here in hours. We keep strict access logs. Check them, I said, please. She put me on hold. I waited, listening to my own pulse in my ears. When she came back, her voice had changed. Quieter now, uncertain. Agent Vale, according to the system, only one person accessed Sublevel 2 today besides me. You, at 11:47 a.m. I was never on Sublevel 2. I was in the examination room on Sublevel 1. I know, but the system shows your badge was scanned at my door. It shows you were here for 4 minutes. I looked at my badge, hanging on its lanyard around my neck. That's impossible. I'm going to review the security footage, Brennan said. I'll call you back. She didn't call back. Instead, 15 minutes later, she appeared at my office door. Her face was pale, and she was carrying a laptop. You need to see this. She set the laptop on my desk, turned it toward me. The screen showed security camera footage from the hallway outside the records division. Timestamp, 11:47 a.m., exactly when the system said my badge had been scanned. For a few seconds, the hallway was empty. Then a figure walked into frame. It was me, or someone wearing my face. Same height, same build, same suit I'd worn today. The figure stopped at Brennan's door, looked directly at the security camera, and smiled. Then it scanned a badge, my badge, and the door unlocked. The figure went inside. The timestamp rolled forward. 4 minutes later, the figure exited, walked back down the hallway, and disappeared around the corner. That's not me, I said. I was never down there. I know, Brennan whispered, because I pulled the footage from Sublevel 1 at the same time. You were in Examination Room 4, watching the VHS tape. I can see you on that camera. You're in 2 places at once, Agent Vale, and that shouldn't be possible. We watched the footage from records again. This time, I noticed something I'd missed before. The figure's shadow. It was wrong. Too long, arms at that familiar distorted angle. The same shadow from the crime scene photographs. "Turn it off," I said. Brennan closed the laptop. We sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, she said, "In my 32 years here, I've seen a lot of strange things. Evidence that goes missing. Files that reappear in the wrong places. Agents who work cases so long they start seeing patterns that aren't there. But I've never seen anything like this. Whatever you're dealing with, Agent Vale, it's not bound by the rules we understand." "Archer and Hayes dealt with it," I said. "They investigated this case and closed it. They survived. Hayes drove his car into the Potomac 3 years later," Brennan said quietly. "And Archer refuses to talk about it. That doesn't sound like surviving to me." She had a point, but I was already in this. The file had my name on it. Someone, or something, had pulled me into the Red Room case, and I needed to understand why. "The address," I said. 4425 Fairview Road. I'm going there tomorrow." "Alone?" Brennan asked. "Do you want to come?" She smiled, but there was no humor in it. "I'm too old to chase ghosts, Agent Vale, but I'll do what I can from here. If you need access to any more archived files, any research support, you call me directly, and Agent Vale—" She stood to leave, paused at the door. "Don't trust what you see. In these kinds of cases, the evidence lies. It shows you what it wants you to see, not what's actually there." After she left, I sat at my desk until midnight, reading through every page of the Red Room file again, looking for connections, patterns, anything that would explain how a dead man could build crime scenes, how evidence could appear in a sealed archive, how someone could be in 2 places at once. I found nothing that made sense. But I did find one detail I'd missed before, buried in Archer's notes from the final victim. She'd written, "Subject's watch stopped at 11:47 p.m., same as previous 8 victims. Time of death estimated several hours earlier, but all watches stopped at identical time. Significance unknown. 11:47, the same time my badge had been scanned on Sublevel 2 today. The same time someone wearing my face had walked into records and used Brennan's phone to send me a message." I checked my own watch. It was still running, ticking normally toward 12:15 a.m., but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was running out of time. That somewhere, in a red room I hadn't found yet, a clock was counting down to 11:47. And when it reached that time, I would understand everything, whether I wanted to or not. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I compiled everything I had on Jacob Mailer, the man who'd allegedly built the Red Rooms before dying 4 months before the first murder. Bureau databases showed he'd been a contractor in the Richmond area, specialized in residential renovation and custom interior work. No criminal record, no suspicious activity, no obvious connection to any of the 9 victims. He'd died of a heart attack in his workshop, found by his wife when she came home from grocery shopping. The medical examiner's report was clean. Acute myocardial infarction, natural causes, case closed. But someone had drawn a red circle around his photograph. Someone had left his name in that evidence bag for me to find. And someone had sent me to his house. I left Quantico at sunrise, driving through morning fog that clung to the highway like something living. Fairview Road was exactly the kind of street you'd expect in suburban Virginia. Older homes set back from the road, trees that had been there 50 years, mailboxes with family names painted in cheerful colors. Number 4425 sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, a 2-story colonial with faded blue siding and a for sale sign planted in the overgrown lawn. The sign looked old, sun-bleached, like it had been there for years. I parked across the street and sat for a moment, studying the house. Nothing obviously wrong about it. But then, nothing had been obviously wrong about any of this until it was too late. I called the number on the real estate sign. A woman answered on the third ring, her voice professionally cheerful. "Hartley Realty, this is Diane. I'm calling about the property at 4425 Fairview Road," I said. "How long has it been on the market?" "Oh, the Mailer house." Her tone shifted, became carefully neutral. "That one's been listed for... let me check. Coming up on 14 years now." 14 years? "Yes, sir. The estate has been trying to sell it since 2011. There have been a few interested parties over the years, but nothing's ever gone through. Inspections keep finding issues." "What kind of issues?" She hesitated. "The kind that make buyers walk away. Are you interested in viewing the property? I should warn you, it's being sold as is. The estate won't make any repairs or renovations." "I'd like to see it," I said. "Are you available this morning?" Another pause. "I can meet you there in an hour. But sir, may I ask, are you seriously interested in purchasing, or is this more of a curiosity visit? Because I have to tell you, most people who want to see this house are just... well, they've heard stories." "What kind of stories?" "The kind I don't repeat to potential buyers," Diane said firmly. 1 hour, agent. I hadn't mentioned I was FBI. "How did you know I'm an agent?" The line went silent for 3 full seconds. When she spoke again, her voice had lost all its professional warmth. "Because the last person who called about this house was an FBI agent too, 27 years ago. She wanted to know if Jacob Mailer had built anything unusual before he died. I was just starting in real estate then. I'll never forget that conversation." "Special Agent Archer," I said. That was her name. She came to see the house, went inside, came out 20 minutes later looking like she'd seen something that broke her. She told me, "Whatever you do, don't let anyone buy this house. Don't let anyone live here." Then she left, and I never heard from her again. My grip tightened on the phone. "But you kept it listed." "The estate insisted. They needed to sell it to settle debts, but I made sure the inspections always found something. Bad wiring, structural issues, toxic mold, anything to make it unsaleable. I've been protecting people from this place for almost 3 decades, Agent." "I didn't catch your name." "Vale. Special Agent Marcus Vale." "Well, Agent Vale, if you want to see the inside of 4425 Fairview Road, I'll show you. But I won't go past the front hallway. I learned that lesson the hard way." She hung up before I could ask what she meant. I spent the next hour doing background research on the property. County records showed it had belonged to Jacob and Linda Mailer from 1987 until Jacob's death in 1997. Linda had moved out immediately after his funeral, relocated to Arizona, and died in 2009 without ever returning to Virginia. The house had passed to their only child, a daughter named Rebecca, who tried to sell it through the estate. Rebecca herself had died in 2018, car accident, no suspicious circumstances, and the property had been tied up in legal proceedings ever since. What interested me more was the property history. Jacob Mailer had bought the house in 1987 and immediately begun extensive renovations. Permits on file showed he'd gutted the interior, rebuilt walls, added rooms. The work had taken 3 years. In 1990, the house was finished, and the Mailers moved in. According to neighbors I called using the reverse directory, the Mailers had been quiet, kept to themselves, seemed normal enough, until the last few months before Jacob's death. He got strange, one elderly neighbor told me over the phone. Her name was Margaret Hessler, and she'd lived on Fairview Road for 40 years. Started working in that workshop of his all hours of the night. We'd hear power tools running at 2, 3 in the morning, And the paint smell, good Lord, it was like he was painting everything red. My husband went over to complain about the noise once, said he looked through the workshop window and saw Jacob standing in the middle of the room, just staring at a wall he'd painted completely red, not moving, not doing anything, just staring. Did your husband talk to him? Tried to. Jacob didn't even turn around. My husband knocked on the window, called his name, nothing. Finally, he just left. Said Jacob looked like he was in some kind of trance. She paused. 2 weeks later, Linda found him dead in that same workshop. Heart attack, they said. But I've always wondered if it wasn't something else. If something in that house didn't, I don't know, break him somehow. I thanked her and hung up just as a silver Honda pulled up in front of 4425. Diane turned out to be a woman in her mid-50s, professionally dressed, with the kind of forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. She got out of the car carrying a lockbox and a clipboard and waited for me on the sidewalk. Agent Vale. She didn't offer to shake hands. I have to warn you again. I'm only going as far as the front hall. What you do beyond that is your business, but I've been inside this house exactly once in 27 years, and that was enough. What did you see? Let's get the front door open first. She walked up the path to the porch and I followed. The house looked worse up close. Paint peeling in long strips, windows filmed with years of dirt, the porch boards soft with rot. Diane worked the lockbox with practiced efficiency, produced a key, and unlocked the door. It swung inward with a sound like a sigh. The smell hit me first. Not decay or mold like I'd expected. Paint. Fresh paint. That chemical smell of latex and pigment. But the house had been empty for more than a decade. Nothing should smell fresh in here. You smell it too, Diane said. It wasn't a question. It's always like this. No matter how long the house sits empty, it always smells like someone just finished painting. She stepped into the front hallway and I followed. The interior was dark, curtains drawn in every room I could see. Diane pulled out a flashlight, she'd come prepared, and aimed it down the hall. The beam caught dust motes drifting in the air, and beneath that, something else. The walls were wrong. They'd been painted red. All of them. The same crimson shade from the crime scene photos. Pantone 186C, the color of blood. But that wasn't what made my breath catch. The paint was fresh. I could see where it glistened wetly in the flashlight beam, where it had dripped and pooled at the baseboards. This is impossible, I said. The house has been empty for years. I know. Diane's voice was steady, but I could hear the tremor underneath. The first time I came here, in 1988, right after Archer's visit, the walls were normal. Beige, boring contractor paint. But when I came back a week later to check on something, they were like this. Fresh red paint everywhere. I called a contractor, asked him to repaint, cover it up. He did. Took him 3 days. The next morning, I got a call from the estate attorney. He'd stopped by to check on the work and the walls were red again. Fresh paint. Like the contractor had never been here. That's not possible. I've heard that before. Doesn't make it less true. She backed toward the door. I'm going to wait in my car, Agent Vale. You have 30 minutes. Any longer than that. And I'm calling local PD. People who stay in this house too long don't come out the same. She was gone before I could argue, leaving me alone in the red hallway with my flashlight and my service weapon and a growing sense that I'd made a terrible mistake coming here. I moved deeper into the house, clearing rooms the way I'd been trained. Living room to the left, red walls, furniture covered in dusty sheets. Kitchen straight ahead. Red walls, counters empty except for a layer of grime. Every surface coated in that fresh paint smell. I touched one wall experimentally. The paint came away on my fingertip, still wet. The stairs to the second floor were directly in front of me. Above them, the hallway disappeared into darkness. I started climbing, counting steps out of habit. 12 steps to the landing, then 6 more to the second floor. The temperature dropped with each step I took. By the time I reached the top, my breath was misting in the air. 4 doors on the second floor, all closed. I opened the first one. Bedroom, empty, red walls. The second, bathroom, fixtures torn out, red walls. The third, another bedroom, this one with a child's bed frame still against the wall. Red walls, but something else too. Writing on the walls. I moved closer, shined my light across the surface. Names. Hundreds of names written in what looked like black marker directly onto the red paint. Melissa Grant, David Ortega, Karen Hayes, Thomas Lynn, Rebecca Foster, James Monroe, Lisa Gardner, William Drake, Emma Sullivan, the 9 Red Room victims. And below them, in larger letters, Marcus Vale, my name, my full name, written on this wall in a house that had been empty for more than a decade. I reached out to touch it, needed to confirm it was real, and the moment my fingers made contact, the lights came on. Not gradually. All at once, every light in the house blazing to life with a sound like a transformer blowing. I spun, weapon drawn, searching for a threat. But there was nothing. Just the sudden, harsh, fluorescent light, turning the red walls into something that hurt to look at. And I heard footsteps, below me, on the first floor. Slow, deliberate steps moving through the house, coming toward the stairs. I moved to the bedroom door, positioning myself to see the stairwell. The footsteps continued their measured pace. 1 step, pause, another step, pause, like whoever was down there was in no hurry, like they knew I wasn't going anywhere. FBI, I called out. My voice sounded thin in the too bright air. Identify yourself. The footsteps stopped. Silence for 5 seconds. 10. Then they started again, faster now. Coming up the stairs, I could see a shadow cast against the wall of the stairwell, elongated and wrong, arms too long. Head at that impossible angle. I aimed my weapon at the top of the stairs, finger on the trigger waiting for whatever was coming to show itself. The shadow grew longer, darker. The footsteps reached the landing, about to turn the corner. I steadied my breathing, sighted down the barrel, and the lights went out. All of them simultaneously, plunging the house back into darkness. I still had my flashlight, grabbed it from my pocket, thumbed it on, aimed it at the stairs. Nothing, no one there, the shadow gone. But I could smell something new now, underneath the paint smell. Copper, like blood. My phone rang, the sound so sudden and loud in the silence that I nearly dropped the flashlight. I kept my weapon trained on the stairs, answered with my other hand. Vale. Agent Vale, this is Patricia Brennan. You need to get out of that house right now. What's wrong? I pulled Jacob Mailer's complete work history, every job he took, every client he worked for. Agent Vale, all 9 Red Room crime scenes. He renovated those buildings. Between 90 and 97, Jacob Mailer personally painted the rooms where the victims were found. He created the Red Rooms 7 years before the murders happened. I processed that, trying to make it fit. That's impossible. How could he know where? He didn't know. He couldn't have. But that's not the worst part. Her voice was shaking now. I found his workshop records. The last project he was working on before he died. He was building a new room. The measurements, the layout, the paint specifications, everything documented. Agent Vale, he was building a room specifically designed for one person. The dimensions match your height and reach exactly. Cold spread through my chest. How could he possibly? The work order is dated October 15th, 1997. 3 weeks before he died, and at the top of the page he'd written a name. Your name, Agent Vale, Marcus Vale. He built a red room for you 28 years ago. I heard movement behind me, spun, flashlight cutting through the darkness, and saw it. The fourth door on the second floor, the one I hadn't opened yet, was swinging inward, revealing a room beyond, a red room, fresh paint glistening on the walls, and in the center, a wooden chair. The same chair from all the crime scene photos. Waiting. "Get out," Brennan said. "Get out now." But I couldn't move, because sitting in the chair, hands folded, staring directly at me with eyes that caught and reflected my flashlight beam like an animal's, was a figure in dark clothing, the same figure from the VHS tape. And as I watched, frozen, they raised one hand and beckoned me forward. Marcus. They spoke my name in a voice I recognized, my own voice. "It's time. 11:47 is coming. You need to be ready." I ran. Down the stairs, through the red hallway, out the front door into sunlight that felt like salvation. Diane was out of her car immediately, running toward me. "What happened? What did you see?" "Lock the house," I managed between breaths. "Lock it, and don't ever let anyone inside again." She didn't argue. While she secured the front door, I got in my car and called Brennan back. "I need Archer's contact information, right now." "She won't talk to you. She's refused every call about the Red Room case for 27 years. Then I'll go to Montana and make her talk. Because whatever's in that house, whatever Jacob Mailer built, it's not finished. It's been waiting, and it knows my name." The drive back to Quantico took 2 hours. I spent all of it thinking about that voice, my voice, speaking from that figure in the chair, about names written on walls in a house that should have been empty, about a dead contractor who'd built crime scenes before the crimes happened, who designed a room specifically for me nearly 3 decades ago. By the time I reached my office, I'd made a decision. I was going to find Riley Archer, and I was going to make her tell me everything she'd seen in this case. Everything she'd learned that made her run away to Montana and refuse to speak about the Red Room murders ever again. Because I was starting to understand something terrifying. This wasn't a case that could be solved. This was a case that chose its investigators. Archer and Hayes hadn't closed it. They'd escaped it, or tried to. And now it was my turn. Brennan was waiting in my office with a file folder. Riley Archer's last known address in Montana, a town called Whitehall, about 40 miles south of Helena, population 3,000. She bought a cabin there in 2003 and hasn't left since. She handed me the folder. "Agent Vale, I have to ask, what did you see in that house?" "Something impossible," I said. "Something that's been waiting for me." "Then why go to Archer? Why not just walk away?" "Because it knows my name. It knew I'd be assigned this case. It's been preparing for 28 years. Walking away won't stop what's coming. I need to understand what I'm dealing with." Brennan nodded slowly. "There's one more thing. I pulled the security footage from Quantico for the night of October 15th, 2024, the date on the VHS tape. Someone accessed the Red Room evidence at 11:47 p.m. They were in the archive for exactly 16 minutes, the same 16 minutes that are missing from the tape. Who? Your badge again. And the security camera shows someone wearing your face. But Agent Vale, the timestamp on the footage is from 4 months ago. You weren't even assigned this case yet. How could someone have known?" I looked at the folder in my hands, at Archer's address written in Brennan's neat handwriting. Because time doesn't work the same way in the Red Rooms. Mailer knew my name in 1997. The rooms knew where the victims would be years before they died there. This thing, whatever it is, it doesn't follow linear time. It's always been ahead of us. That's impossible. So is everything else that's happened. I stood, grabbed my jacket. I'm taking a few days' leave. If anyone asks, I'm following a lead on an unrelated case. And, Patricia, if my badge scans into any building I'm not physically in, if you see me on any security camera and I'm not where I'm supposed to be, call me immediately. Because that means it started. What started? I thought about that wooden chair, waiting in the red room, about my name on the wall, about that voice, my voice, telling me it was time. I don't know yet, but it ends at 11:47, and I intend to be ready when it does. I booked a flight to Montana, leaving that evening. 6 hours to Denver, then a connecting flight to Butte. From there, a rental car to Whitehall. I'd arrive around midnight, find a motel, and track down Riley Archer in the morning. She'd talk to me. She had to, because she was the only person alive who'd investigated the Red Room case and survived to close it. Or so I thought. As I was packing in my apartment, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Agent Vale, a man's voice, elderly, rough with age. My name is Thomas Hayes. I'm calling about my brother. I went still. Agent Lincoln Hayes? That's right. I heard through, well, let's call them mutual friends, that you've been assigned the Red Room case. I thought you should know something. My brother didn't commit suicide. He was murdered. The official report was wrong. I identified the body. There were marks on his wrists, his ankles, ligature marks. Someone tied him down before they put him in that car, and there was paint under his fingernails, red paint, the exact same shade from the crime scenes. My mouth had gone dry. Why didn't you report this? I did. To the local police, to the FBI, to anyone who would listen. But every report was dismissed. Lost in the system. Archived without investigation. It was like someone didn't want the truth to come out. Someone with access to federal records, to evidence systems. Someone who could make things disappear. Or appear, I said quietly. Exactly. Agent Vale, my brother called me 2 days before he died. He was scared, more scared than I'd ever heard him. He said the Red Room case wasn't closed. He said it was waiting. That something in those rooms had marked him and Archer, and it was coming for them both. He said he kept seeing himself. Not a reflection. Himself. A version of him that wore his face but wasn't him. Following him, watching him. And he said it knew things that hadn't happened yet. What happened to Archer? She ran, got as far from D.C. as she could. My brother tried to run too, but it was too late. Whatever that thing was, it got him first. Agent Vale, if you're investigating this case, you need to understand. You're not hunting a killer. You're being hunted. And it's patient. It's been patient for 27 years, waiting for the right investigator. Waiting for you. The line went dead. I called back. Out of service. Just like the texts from Brennan's phone. I stood there in my apartment, suitcase half packed, trying to decide if I was making a terrible mistake, going to Montana to find Archer. Pursuing a case that had killed Hayes and made Archer flee for her life. But I didn't have a choice. My name was on that wall. My voice had spoken from that chair. 11:47 was coming, whatever that meant. And if I was going to face whatever waited in the red rooms, I needed to know what Archer had learned. What she'd seen that made her run. My watch read 9:32 p.m. In theory, I had time to catch my flight. But as I grabbed my suitcase and headed for the door, I glanced at the mirror in my hallway. And froze. My reflection was smiling. I wasn't smiling, but the reflection was, with an expression I'd never made in my life. Wide and knowing and utterly wrong on my face. As I watched, the reflection raised one hand and pointed at its watch. then mouthed a single word: soon. I ran from my apartment without looking back, got in my car, drove to the airport with my hands shaking on the wheel. The whole time I kept checking the rearview mirror, terrified I'd see myself following. But there was nothing. Just traffic, headlights, the ordinary darkness of a Virginia night. The flight was delayed, mechanical issues. We didn't take off until after midnight. I spent the entire 6 hours staring out the window at the darkness below, unable to sleep, unable to stop thinking about that smile in my reflection, about Lincoln Hayes's ligature marks and the paint under his fingernails, about Riley Archer hiding in the mountains of Montana for 27 years. By the time we landed in Butte, dawn was breaking over the Rockies. I picked up the rental car and drove south toward Whitehall, following GPS directions through mountains and forests that felt alien after years in D.C. The town was small, just a few streets clustered around an old railroad depot. I found a diner, ordered coffee and breakfast, and asked the waitress if she knew Riley Archer. The lady in the cabin up on Ridge Road. The waitress was young, maybe 25, with that friendly Montana openness. Sure, everyone knows Riley. She keeps to herself mostly, but she's nice enough. You a friend of hers? Something like that. I need to talk to her about work. The waitress's expression changed, became guarded. What kind of work? I'm FBI. She used to be too. Yeah, I know. She doesn't like to talk about that. Said she left all that behind. The waitress refilled my coffee without being asked. If you're going up there, be careful. The road's rough this time of year. And Riley, well, she's not great with unexpected visitors. Last person who surprised her, she met them at the door with a shotgun. I left cash on the counter and got directions to Ridge Road. It took another 20 minutes to find the turnoff, and the waitress hadn't been kidding about the road. Barely more than a dirt track, winding up into the foothills through stands of pine and aspen. Archer's cabin was at the end, set back in the trees, a small log structure with a covered porch and chimney trailing smoke. I parked 50 yards away and walked the rest of the distance. Before I reached the porch, the door opened and Riley Archer stepped out. She was older than her bureau photo, hair gone gray, but she moved with the same careful precision I remembered from other ex-agents. And yes, she was holding a shotgun. Far enough, she said. I know who you are, Agent Vale. I've been expecting you. The question is, are you really you, or are you it wearing your face? I stopped, raised my hand slowly. How would I prove which one I am? You can't. That's the problem. She studied me for a long moment. But if you were it, you wouldn't be standing there asking reasonable questions. You'd already be inside my head. So I'm going to take a chance. Come up slow. Keep your hands where I can see them, and tell me why you're here. I climbed the porch steps carefully. Up close, I could see Archer looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept well in years. The Red Room case. It's been reopened. I need to know what you found, what you saw that made you run. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I didn't run, Agent Vale. I retreated strategically. There's a difference. Come inside. We don't want to have this conversation where it can hear. Where what can hear? The room, Archer said simply. They're always listening. Inside, the cabin was sparse but comfortable. Wood stove radiating heat, bookshelves lining one wall, a desk covered in papers and photographs. Archer set the shotgun by the door but kept it within reach. She gestured to a chair by the stove. Coffee? Please. I sat, trying to process what she'd just said. The rooms are listening? What does that mean? Exactly what it sounds like. She poured 2 mugs from a pot on the stove, handed me one, and sat across from me. Tell me what you've found so far. Everything. I told her. The reopened file, the VHS tape, the added evidence, the house on Fairview Road, Jacob Mailer's work history, the figure in the chair speaking with my voice, my name on the wall. Archer listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each detail. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, "It's worse than I thought. When Hayes and I worked this case, it took months before we started seeing the patterns, the impossible connections. It's escalating with you, moving faster. That means it's running out of time." Time for what? To complete the sequence. Archer stood, walked to her desk, and came back with a folder. Inside were crime scene photos I recognized, the 9 Red Room victims, but also other materials, charts, timelines, mathematical calculations covered in her handwriting. Hayes and I figured out a few things before he died. The Red Room murders weren't random killings. They were a process, a ritual almost. Each victim was chosen for a specific reason, killed at a specific time in a specific place, but we could never figure out what the reason was, what the pattern meant. She spread the photos across the small table between us. Look at the timestamps. Every victim's watch stopped at 11:47 p.m., every single one, but their estimated times of death were all different. Some died hours earlier, some minutes before. The watch's stopping wasn't a mechanical failure. It was a marker. 11:47 is significant. My badge was scanned at 11:47, I said. In multiple places I wasn't. The figure in Mailer's house mentioned that time specifically. Because that's when it happens. That's when the room opens. Archer pulled out another document, a schematic drawing. I recognized Jacob Mailer's handwriting in the margins. I found this in Mailer's workshop after his death. His wife let me search it. This isn't a blueprint for a single room. It's a design for 9 rooms, all connected somehow, not physically but conceptually, like they're points on a larger structure. And there's a 10th point here. She tapped the center of the schematic. Unmarked, unbuilt, the convergence point. The room he designed for me. Maybe. Or the room you're supposed to complete. Archer looked at me with those tired eyes. Agent Vale, do you believe in patterns that exist outside normal space and time? Structures that aren't bound by physics as we understand it. I believe in evidence. Then consider this evidence. I've been tracking the Red Room case for 27 years from this cabin. Every murder that matches the pattern, isolated victim, Red Room, death at an unknown hour, but watch stopped at 11:47. The official count is 9 victims in 1998 and 99, but I've found 7 more. 1 in 2003, 2 in 2008, 3 in 2015, and 1 in 2023. All of them suppressed, files buried, investigations that went nowhere. Someone's been continuing the work, building towards something. And every one of those victims had a connection to the FBI. My blood went cold. What kind of connection? Family members of agents, former informants, witnesses in old cases, people whose deaths would draw FBI attention but wouldn't trigger a major investigation, and every single time an agent was assigned to look into it. Every single time that agent saw something they shouldn't have, experienced something impossible, and every single time that agent either died or disappeared within 3 years. Like Hayes, like 6 others whose names are in this file, all dead or missing. The only reason I'm still alive is because I stopped investigating. I closed the case, walked away, and stayed walked away. I broke the pattern. She leaned forward. But you can't break it, Agent Vale. You're too important. Your name was on Mailer's schematic in 97. You were always meant to be part of this. The question is, why you specifically? I didn't have an answer. What's the 10th room, the convergence point? I don't know, but I think it's not a physical space. I think it's a person, someone who exists at the intersection of all 9 rooms, someone who can perceive what's happening across all the death sites simultaneously, someone who can... She stopped, stared at me. You've been having dreams, haven't you? Red rooms. Different rooms, but all red. You're not just watching, you're there. You can feel the paint under your hands. I hadn't told her about the dreams. But yes, I'd been having them. Every night since I opened the file. Different rooms, different layouts, but always the same crimson walls, the same wooden chair, the same sense of waiting for something to arrive. How did you know? Because I had them too. So did Hayes. So did every agent who got too close to this case. The rooms aren't just physical locations, Agent Vale. They're nodes in something larger. And when you interact with them, when you read the files, watch the tapes, visit the sites, you create a connection. The rooms can reach you, influence you, show you things. The figure wearing my face, that's your echo. Every person has one in the rooms, a version of yourself that exists in that space. It knows what you know, but it's not constrained by linear time. It can see forward and backward along your timeline. And if the echo gets strong enough, if the connection gets deep enough, it can cross over. Manifest in our reality. That's what happened to Hayes. His echo came for him, tied him down, put him in that car, made it look like suicide, but it wasn't Hayes who died. It was the original. The echo took his place. I stood abruptly, coffee sloshing out of my cup. That's impossible. I've been telling you. Normal rules don't apply. The rooms exist outside our physics. They're cracks, maybe. Places where reality is thin enough that something else can reach through. And whatever's on the other side has been conducting an experiment for decades, building red rooms, marking victims, watching what happens. Mailer was its first success, a human being who could build the rooms in physical space, who could translate that impossible architecture into our reality. But Mailer died before the work was finished, so it's been trying again. Using agents, investigators, people drawn to the pattern, trying to create another builder, another architect. You think I'm supposed to build something? I think you're supposed to complete what Mailer started, the 10th room, the convergence point, and I think when you do, at 11:47 p.m. something's going to come through, something that's been waiting on the other side for a very long time. I sat back down, trying to absorb this. It was insane. All of it. But it fit with everything I'd experienced. The impossible evidence, the temporal anomalies, the figure wearing my face. How do I stop it? Archer was quiet for a moment. Hayes thought we could destroy the rooms. He spent a year tracking down every location, planning to burn them all simultaneously. Break the pattern by removing the physical sites. But before he could execute the plan, his echo came for him. I don't know if destroying the rooms would have worked, but I know trying to fight directly is suicide. Whatever this thing is, it's patient, it's strategic, it's always 3 steps ahead. So what do? You do what I did. Walk away, close the case, request reassignment, get as far from DC as possible, break the connection before it gets strong enough for your echo to cross over. I can't. My name is already on the wall. The process has started. Then you're probably already dead, Agent Vale. You just haven't figured it out yet. Archer stood, walked to the window, looked out at the Montana wilderness. Hayes tried to warn me, right before the end. He said he'd figured out the pattern, that all 9 victims had something in common that we'd missed. He was going to tell me what it was, but his echo got to him first. Whatever he discovered died with him. I pulled out my phone, opened the case file I'd saved there. The victims: Melissa Grant, David Ortega, Karen Hayes, Thomas Lynn, Rebecca Foster, James Monroe, Lisa Gardner, William Drake, and Emma Sullivan. Different ages, different backgrounds, different cities. The original investigation found no connections. But there has to be one. Hayes was certain. Archer turned back from the window. What if the connection isn't about who they were, but where they were? Or when? I started pulling up background on each victim, cross-referencing their life histories. After 20 minutes of searching, I found it. They all visited Washington, D.C. within 6 months of their deaths. Not together. Separate trips, different dates, but they were all there. Doing what? Grant was at a conference. Ortega on a school field trip with his students. Hayes visiting family. Lynn had a job interview. Foster was there for medical treatment. I kept scrolling through the records. But they all went to the same place during their visits. The J. Edgar Hoover Building, FBI headquarters. Archer went very still. Why would they go there? Tours. Public tours of the FBI. It was a popular attraction in the 90s. They all took the tour within the same 2-week period. April 1998. 2 months before the first murder. Which means they were all in the building at the same time, Archer said slowly. All exposed to the same... What? What's in FBI headquarters that could mark them? Then I remembered. The archives. The Red Room file was in archives. Sublevel 2. The tour route used to pass by records. Visitors could look through a viewing window, see agents working with historical documents. Oh, God! Archer's face had gone pale. The file was marking people. Anyone who saw it, anyone who came close to it, became part of the pattern. That's why it keeps appearing in my dreams. That's why I had to get away from D.C. The file itself is one of the rooms. A room that exists in paperwork and photographs and evidence. A room that can be opened anywhere. My hands were shaking. I've been carrying the file with me, reading it, studying it, for days. Then you're already inside it. The connection is established. Your echo is already active. She grabbed the shotgun, held it with the barrel pointed at the floor, but ready. Agent Vale, I need you to tell me the truth. When you look in a mirror, does your reflection move the same way you do? I thought about my hallway mirror, about that smile. Not always. Then we're out of time. Your echo is crossing over. When it completes the process, it'll take your place in the physical world, and you'll be trapped in the rooms. That's what happened to Hayes. His echo came through, and he, the real him, got pulled into that space between. He's still there, Agent Vale. They're all still there. Every agent who got too close, every victim, all of them trapped in the red rooms, existing at 11:47 p.m. forever. How do I stop my echo? You can't. Not once it's started. But you can maybe trap it. Force it to manifest somewhere you control, somewhere you can contain it. She pulled a map from her desk, spread it on the table. The original 9 crime scenes form a pattern. Look. She marked each location with a red X. When connected, they formed a shape. Not random at all. A geometric pattern. Precise and deliberate. And at the center, unmarked but obvious once you saw it, Quantico, FBI headquarters. The 10th room is there, Archer said. Where it's always been. The convergence point. That's where your echo will try to manifest completely. Where the boundary between the two realities is thinnest. If you're going to face this, that's where it'll happen. When? 11:47 p.m. It's always 11:47. But which day? She looked at her watch. What's today's date? December 7th. Then you have exactly 10 days, December 17th. That's the anniversary of when Mailer died, 11:47 p.m., December 17th, 1997. The moment the first room was truly completed. The moment the pattern began. It's going to repeat. Your echo will try to complete the convergence at the exact same time, 28 years later. I stood, my mind racing. 10 days to figure out how to trap a version of myself that existed outside linear time. 10 days to prevent something impossible from becoming real. What do I need? Archer went to a closet, pulled out a heavy backpack. Everything Hayes and I gathered. Notes on the rooms, diagrams of the pattern, Mailer's original schematics, and this. She handed me a small glass vial filled with red liquid. Paint from the original crime scene, the first red room. It's been tested 100 times. It's just paint. Latex, pigment, nothing special. But in the context of the rooms, it's different. It's a marker, a way of identifying what's real and what's echo. Your echo can mimic you perfectly, but it can't interact with the original paint. The molecules repel each other. Don't ask me why. Hayes thought it was a quantum entanglement thing, but I think it's simpler than that. The rooms reject anything that tries to bring evidence of them into our reality. I took the vial carefully. If I trap the echo, if I stop it from manifesting, does the pattern end? I don't know, but it's the only option you have left. She walked me to the door. Agent Vale, I'm sorry I couldn't do more. I'm sorry I ran instead of fighting. But I've lived with this for 27 years, and the only reason I'm still here is because I chose survival over answers. You don't have that option now. You're already too deep. But maybe... She stopped, looked at me with something that might have been hope, or might have been pity. Maybe you can do what Hayes and I couldn't. Maybe you can close the pattern for good. I drove back to Butte in silence, the backpack on the seat beside me. Archer's words echoing in my head. 10 days, 11:47 p.m. on December 17th. The convergence at Quantico. My echo trying to cross over and trap me in that impossible space where all the victims waited. Frozen at 11:47 p.m. forever. The flight back to D.C. was uneventful, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every passenger seemed suspicious. Every reflected surface might show me my echo instead of myself. I kept Archer's vial of paint in my jacket pocket, touching it occasionally to remind myself it was real. That some part of this nightmare could still be proven, measured, controlled. Brennan called as I was landing. Agent Vale, we have a problem. Your badge was scanned into Sublevel 2 3 hours ago, but you were on a plane. I checked the security footage. She paused. It looked exactly like you. Same walk, same mannerisms, but when I reviewed the tape at half speed, I noticed something. The shadow, it's wrong. I know, it's my echo. It's getting stronger. Your what? I explained, quickly. Everything Archer had told me. The rooms, the pattern, the convergence. When I finished, Brennan was silent for a long time. Agent Vale, in 32 years I've never believed in anything I couldn't touch. But I've seen the evidence. I've seen you in 2 places at once. So, I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to be honest. Are you the real Marcus Vale, or are you the echo? The question sent ice through my veins. How would I know? Exactly. That's the problem, isn't it? If the echo is perfect, if it has all your memories and behaves exactly like you, then there's no way to tell which one is the original. You could be the echo, Agent Vale. You could have been the echo from the beginning, and the real you could already be trapped in the rooms. I touched the vial in my pocket. Archer gave me a way to test it. Paint from the first crime scene. Echoes can't interact with it. The molecules repel. Then test yourself. Now. before you come back to Quantico. I was in the airport bathroom, alone at a sink. I pulled out the vial, uncapped it carefully. The paint inside was still liquid, defying age and chemistry. I dipped my finger in it. The paint touched my skin normally. No repulsion, no impossible physics. It felt like paint, cold, slightly viscous, clinging to my fingertip. I brought it close to my reflection in the mirror, and the reflection recoiled, pulled back from the glass like the paint was acid. And for just a moment, I saw its true face, not my face. Something that wore my face like a mask, but underneath was wrong. Angles that didn't exist in three-dimensional space, features that hurt to perceive. Then it was gone, and my reflection was normal again. Smiling. That same wrong smile. "I'm real," I told Brennan. "The echo is separate. It's following me, but I'm still me. For now." But Archer said the echo gets stronger as the convergence approaches. "Agent Vale, if it takes your place before December 17th, we won't be able to stop it. You need to get to Quantico. You need to prepare. And you need to figure out how to trap it when it manifests." I wiped the paint from my finger, capped the vial. "I'm on my way. But Brennan, if at any point you think I'm not me anymore, if you think the echo has taken over, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "Don't let it reach the convergence point. Don't let it complete the pattern. Even if it means—" "I understand," she said quietly. "I'll do what's necessary." I hung up and left the airport, drove through the familiar streets of D.C. toward Quantico. The city looked different now, like I was seeing it through a film of red paint. Every building a potential room, every shadow a possible echo. The world had become thin, and I could feel something pressing against it from the other side. 9 days until the convergence. 9 days to figure out how to trap myself. 9 days to prevent something that had been inevitable since Jacob Mailer wrote my name on a schematic 28 years ago. And somewhere in the red rooms, in that space between moments, my echo was waiting, getting stronger, learning how to be me so perfectly that no one would ever notice when it took my place. The only question was, would I recognize it when it came? Or was I already living in its world, trapped in the pattern, convinced I was real when I was just another echo waiting for 1147? The convergence point was in sublevel 3. Brennan had found it using Mailer's schematics, a storage room that hadn't been opened in decades, behind a door that wasn't on any official floor plan. According to the architectural records, the space shouldn't exist. The building's blueprints showed a solid wall, but Mailer's drawings showed a room. A 10th room. The final room. We had 6 days left. I spent them preparing. Archer's backpack contained everything Hayes had gathered. Mathematical analyses of the room configurations, psychological profiles of the victims, even attempts at predicting the echo's behavior based on quantum probability models. Most of it was incomprehensible, the work of a brilliant mind pushed to its breaking point. But some of it was useful. The echoes operated on a simple principle. They existed in all possible timelines simultaneously, collapsing into a single manifestation only when observed. That's why they could be in multiple places at once, why they knew things that hadn't happened yet. They weren't bound by causality, but that was also their weakness. If I could force my echo to manifest completely, to collapse into a single timeline, it would become as vulnerable as anything physical. The paint was the key. Archer's vial and 15 others I'd requisitioned from the evidence locker, each one from a different Red Room crime scene. Mixed together, they created something that shouldn't exist. A physical impossibility, a liquid that existed in 9 places at once. Painting the convergence room with it would create a trap. A space where the echo couldn't exist in multiple timelines, where it would have to manifest completely and physically. But I had to be inside the room when it happened. At 11:47 p.m. on December 17th, I had to be standing in that impossible space, face to face with my echo, as the convergence occurred. "This is insane," Brennan said. We were in my office at 2 a.m., 4 days before the convergence. You're talking about trapping yourself in a room outside normal space-time, with a version of yourself that exists across multiple timelines. What happens when the convergence occurs? What happens to you? I don't know, I admitted. Archer's note suggests that either I absorb the echo, or it absorbs me, or we both collapse into a single entity. The pattern completes, the 10th room closes, and the red room case ends. Or you both die trapped in that moment forever, and the pattern continues with someone else. That's a possibility too. She slammed her hand on the desk. Then don't do it. Walk away like Archer did. Disappear. Break the connection. I can't. I'm already marked. My echo is already active. If I run, it'll just manifest somewhere else, complete the convergence without me. At least this way I have some control. I can choose the ground. I can fight back. You can't fight something that knows everything you're going to do before you do it. Maybe. Or maybe being inside the room changes the rules. Maybe in that space we're equal. Both trapped, both vulnerable. I looked at the calendar on my wall. December 14th, 3 days. I need to see the room, tonight, before I paint it. I need to know what I'm dealing with. Brennan didn't argue. She'd seen too much evidence to doubt me now. We went to Sublevel 3 together, past security checkpoints and through corridors that grew progressively older, the fluorescent lights giving way to bare bulbs, the tile floors becoming concrete. The Hoover building had been built in stages, each expansion layered on top of the last. Sublevel 3 was the oldest section, dating back to the 1930s, before the FBI was even called the FBI. The door was exactly where Mailer's schematic showed it would be. Unmarked gray metal, handle covered in decades of dust. Brennan had brought bolt cutters. The lock was old, industrial, never meant to be opened again. It took 3 tries, but the lock finally gave way with a sound like breaking bones. The door swung open on hinges that screamed. Behind it, darkness and that smell. Fresh paint, latex and pigment, crimson in the air. Brennan aimed her flashlight inside. The beam caught red walls. Of course it did. The room had never been painted by human hands, but it was red anyway, had always been red, would always be red. This was the space Mailer had designed but never built. The room that existed because the pattern needed it to exist. In the center, the wooden chair, the same one from all 9 crime scenes. Waiting. "Don't go in," Brennan said. Her voice shook. "Please, Agent Vale, we can seal this door. Fill the room with concrete. Bury it so deep, no one can ever find it again. The echo would just manifest somewhere else. The pattern would continue. The only way to end this is to face it. To complete the convergence on my terms." I stepped inside. The temperature dropped immediately, my breath misting. The room was small, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet, but it felt vast. The walls receded into impossible distances, the ceiling stretching up and up into a red sky that shouldn't exist underground. This wasn't a room, it was a threshold, a door between realities. "Agent Vale," Brennan's voice sounded distant, even though she was only 5 feet behind me. "Your shadow." I looked down. My shadow on the red floor was wrong. Arms too long, head at that angle. And it was moving independently, detaching from my feet, sliding across the floor toward the chair. I stepped back quickly out of the room. My shadow returned to normal instantly. Brennan's face was white. It's active. The room is active. Your echo is already here. Good. That means it'll be here for the convergence. It'll have to manifest. I looked at my watch. 2:47 a.m. Tomorrow night, I paint the room, and on December 17th at 11:47 p.m. I end this. The next 2 days blurred together. I spent them reviewing Hayes's notes, Archer's calculations, every piece of evidence from the original 9 murders, looking for any advantage, any insight into how to survive the convergence. I called Archer once. She answered on the first ring, like she'd been waiting. "You're really going through with it," she said. Not a question. "I don't have a choice. Hayes said the same thing. Right before he died." She was quiet for a moment. "Agent Vale, if you do survive this, if you close the pattern, promise me something." "What?" "Burn the files, all of them, every photograph, every report, every piece of evidence. The Red Room case can't be allowed to exist in any form. The knowledge itself is infectious. It marks people. As long as the files exist, the pattern can restart. I promise. Good luck, Marcus. I hope you're stronger than Hayes was, stronger than I was." She hung up. I never spoke to her again. On December 16th, at midnight, Brennan and I returned to Sublevel 3. We brought the paint, 16 vials mixed into a single bucket that should have been brown or muddy, but instead was that perfect crimson. Pantone 186C, the color of blood, the color of the rooms. I put on a respirator, gloves. Brennan stood watch at the door while I went inside and started painting. The walls first, covering that impossible red with new impossible red. The paint went on smoothly, evenly, like it wanted to be there, like it was coming home. With each stroke, the room changed. The vast distances collapsed. The ceiling lowered. The space became merely a room again, concrete and defined. I was trapping it, forcing it into a single configuration, a single timeline. It took 3 hours to paint all 4 walls, the ceiling, the floor. By the time I finished, the room was a perfect red box, and the chair in the center looked more solid than before. More real, like it was ready to be occupied. I stepped out, stripped off the respirator. Brennan looked at the room with something like horror. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "God help me, it's beautiful." She was right. The room was perfect. A perfect trap, a perfect ending point for a pattern that had been building for 28 years. "Tomorrow night," I said, 11:47 p.m. It ends. I spent December 17th in my apartment. I couldn't work, couldn't focus on anything but the approaching time. I checked my reflection obsessively, looking for signs that the echo had already taken over. But I seemed normal. My shadow moved correctly. My thoughts were my own. Or so I believed. At 10 o'clock p.m., I drove to Quantico for the last time. Brennan met me at the entrance to Sublevel 3. She'd brought 2 things: a clock synchronized to atomic time and a video camera. "I'm going to record everything," she said. "Whatever happens in that room at 11:47, the world needs to know. The Bureau needs to know." Archer said to burn the files. "I will, after I watch what happens, after I understand." She set up the camera aimed at the room's doorway. "How will I know if you win? How will I know which one comes out?" "The paint," I said, pulling out Archer's vial. "The echo can't interact with it. If I come out and I can touch this, I'm real. If I can't, I'm the echo. And you seal the room with me inside. And if you don't come out at all, then the pattern failed, the convergence collapsed, and you burn everything anyway." It was 11:30 when I finally entered the room. The wooden chair was waiting, exactly where it had always been. I didn't sit in it. That felt like surrender. Instead, I stood in the center of the room and waited. At 11:42, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Hello, Marcus." My voice. My exact voice. "It's almost time." "I know." "Are you afraid?" "Yes." "Good. Fear means you understand what's happening. Fear means you're still human." A pause. "I'm not afraid anymore. I've seen too much. I've been in too many timelines, experienced too many versions of this moment. In some of them you win. In some I do. In most we both lose. But in one timeline, just one, we both survive. We become something new, something that can exist in both realities. Which timeline is this? I don't know yet. That's the beautiful part. Even I can't see what happens at 11:47. The convergence is a blind spot, a moment of pure possibility. We're both about to find out who we really are. The call ended. My watch read 11:45. At 11:46, the lights in the room flickered. Once, twice. Then they stabilized, but the quality of light had changed. It was redder now, tinted by the walls, by the paint that existed in 9 places at once. At 11:46:30, I saw movement in my peripheral vision, a shadow detaching from the wall, taking shape, becoming solid. At 11:46:45, my echo stepped into the center of the room with me. We stood face to face, perfect mirrors. It smiled. I didn't. At 11:46:55, it spoke. "Ready?" And at 11:47 Ka, the convergence began. The room folded. Not metaphorically, physically folded like origami. The walls bending in dimensions that shouldn't exist. I could see all 9 Red Room crime scenes simultaneously, overlapping, existing in the same space. The victims were there, sitting in their chairs, watching. Not dead. Not alive. Just waiting. Always waiting. My echo reached for me, and I reached back. Our hands touched, and I understood. The pattern wasn't trying to kill me. It was trying to communicate. The rooms, the victims, the echoes, they were all attempts by something vast and incomprehensible to make contact with our reality, to translate itself into forms we could perceive. Jacob Mailer had been its first successful translator, and he died from the effort. Hayes had been its second attempt, and he'd been consumed. I was its third. The difference was, I was ready. I'd chosen this. I'd walked into the convergence willingly. My echo and I merged. Not one absorbing the other, but becoming a single entity that existed in both realities simultaneously. I could feel all 9 crime scenes as parts of my body. I could perceive time non-linearly, see forward and backward along my own timeline. I understood what Archer had run from, what Hayes had died fighting. The thing in the red rooms wasn't evil. It wasn't even alive by our standards. It was mathematics. Pure pattern. A structure that existed outside causality, trying to find a way to exist within it. And it had chosen me as its final architect, its final translator. I had a choice. I could accept the role, become its permanent bridge between realities, spend eternity as the convergence point. Or I could reject it, collapse the pattern, destroy the rooms and everything they contained. Archer had run because she couldn't make that choice. Hayes had tried to fight and been destroyed, but I chose neither. Instead, I painted. In that space between moments, with my echo as my brush, and the 9 rooms as my canvas, I painted a new pattern. Not a bridge, not a convergence. A door that could be closed. A seal. I painted my name across all 9 crime scenes in that impossible red, marking them as complete. Finished. part of a pattern that had ended. And then I painted one final thing. The word stop. Not for the pattern, for myself. A reminder that some doors shouldn't be opened. Some patterns shouldn't be completed. Some things exist outside our reality for a reason. The convergence shattered. I was standing in the room on sublevel 3, alone. My echo was gone. The chair was gone. The red walls were fading to gray concrete. My watch read 11:47:16. 16 seconds. The convergence had lasted 16 seconds, but I remembered hours, days, lifetimes spent in that folded space, learning to be the thing the pattern wanted me to be, then choosing to unmake it instead. I walked to the door. Brennan was there, camera still recording, eyes wide. "Agent Vale, are you—" I held out my hand. She gave me Archer's vial of paint. I opened it, dipped my finger in. The paint touched my skin normally. No repulsion, no impossible physics. I was real. "It's done," I said. "The pattern's closed. The rooms are sealed." "What happened in there?" "I'll write a report, but you won't believe it. And then you'll burn it, like Archer asked." We sealed the door to sublevel 3 with industrial-strength welding, then filled the room with concrete. It took 2 days. When it was finished, that space where the 10th room had been was just solid mass. A deliberate void in the FBI's architecture. A place that no longer existed. I did write the report. 27 pages detailing everything from the reopened file to the convergence. I gave it to Brennan on December 20th. She read it in front of me, then fed every page into a shredder. Then she burned the shreds. Then she scattered the ashes. "The Red Room case is officially closed," she said. "Status, unfounded. No evidence of criminal activity. File archived permanently. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm doing this for Archer, for Hayes, for everyone who got pulled into this nightmare and didn't make it out." She looked at me carefully. "Are you really you, Agent Vale? Or are you the echo that learned to pass the paint test?" I'd asked myself that question every day since the convergence. I don't know anymore. Maybe I'm both. Maybe that's what it means to survive the pattern. You come out changed. Not quite the person who went in. Can you live with that? I thought about the 9 victims, still sitting in their chairs in the rooms I'd sealed away. I thought about Hayes, who'd died fighting something he couldn't understand. I thought about Archer, hiding in Montana for 27 years, too afraid to face what she'd learned. "I can try," I said. That was 3 months ago. I'm still at Quantico. Still Special Agent Marcus Vale. I close cases, testify in court, live my life. But every night I dream of red rooms. And sometimes when I look in the mirror, I see my reflection smile when I'm not smiling. The echoes are still there. Always will be. The pattern isn't destroyed, just sleeping. Waiting for someone else to open the file, to visit the crime scenes, to build new rooms in that impossible crimson. It's 11:46 p.m. now. I'm sitting in my apartment writing this account. In 60 seconds, it'll be 11:47. The same time it's always been in the red rooms. The same moment stretching across decades. My reflection is watching me from the dark screen of my laptop. It's smiling. The lights are flickering, and I realize, with a certainty that transcends logic, that the convergence never ended. I'm still there, in that 10th room, existing in all timelines simultaneously. The Marcus Vale sitting in this apartment is an echo. The Marcus Vale who sealed the rooms was an echo. The Marcus Vale who spoke to Archer was an echo. We're all echoes. The only real Marcus Vale is the one in the chair, in the red room, waiting at 11:47 p.m. on December 17th, 1997. The one who never left. the one who's been there for 28 years, dreaming of being an FBI agent, dreaming of investigating his own case, dreaming of solving a pattern that never had a solution. Because the Red Room case was never about murders. It was about me. It's always been about me. And as my watch hits 11:47, as my reflection stands up from the laptop screen and walks toward me wearing my face, I finally understand what Jacob Mailer understood when he painted that first wall crimson in 1997. Some rooms you never leave. You just dream you did. The call came through at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in November. I'm Special Agent Sloan Carter, and I'd been working the night shift at the FBI Academy in Quantico for 3 weeks. It wasn't a punishment. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. After the Minneapolis field office incident, where I'd discharged my weapon during what turned out to be a training exercise I wasn't briefed on, the Bureau decided I needed recalibration. That's what Deputy Director Morrison called it. I called it exile. Quantico. At night is a different animal than during the day. The training facility that bustles with new agent recruits, instructors, and endless drills becomes something else after dark. The corridors stretch longer. The fluorescent lights hum at a frequency that makes your teeth ache. And the silence. God, the silence is absolute. You can hear your own heartbeat echoing off the walls. I was doing my 4th perimeter check of the night when my radio crackled. Static first, then a voice I didn't recognize. Male, middle-aged, barely audible through the interference. Security. Building C. Someone's inside. I keyed my radio. This is Agent Carter. Repeat your last. Who is this? More static. Then, footsteps, level 3, not supposed to be here. The transmission cut out completely. I checked my radio. Full battery, good signal. But when I tried to raise the speaker again, nothing. Just dead air. Building C was the administrative and records building, 3 stories of offices and archives. At this hour, it should have been empty. I was the only FBI personnel on night patrol, along with 2 civilian security guards who covered the outer perimeter. Standard protocol was to call for backup before investigating, but something about that transmission bothered me. The voice had sounded wrong. Not scared exactly, but displaced, like someone calling from very far away. I made my way to Building C, my flashlight cutting through the November fog that had settled across the grounds. The main entrance was locked. Security panel showing green, no unauthorized access in the last 12 hours. But the voice on the radio had been certain. Someone was inside. I used my keycard, and the door clicked open with a sound that seemed too loud in the stillness. The lobby was dark, emergency lighting providing just enough illumination to navigate. I drew my weapon, protocol for investigating potential intrusions, and moved toward the stairwell. The elevator would be faster, but I'd learned during my first week that the elevators in Building C had a tendency to malfunction at night. They'd get stuck between floors, or arrive at levels you hadn't selected, or open to reveal empty shafts. Maintenance blamed it on electrical issues. I blamed it on the building being older than most of the agents who worked here. I started climbing the stairs to level 3. My footsteps echoed in the concrete stairwell, each step creating a sound that bounced back to me a half-second later. But as I reached the second-floor landing, I heard something else. Another set of footsteps. Above me, keeping pace with mine. I stopped. The other footsteps stopped. I started again. They started again. FBI, I called up the stairwell. Identify yourself. No response. Just my voice echoing back, distorted slightly, like it was coming from somewhere deep and hollow. I continued climbing, faster now, taking the steps 2 at a time. The footsteps above me matched my pace exactly. When I reached the 3rd floor door, I yanked it open, weapon raised, ready for nothing. The hallway was empty. Fluorescent lights flickered in that way they do in old buildings, creating strobing shadows that made everything seem to move when it wasn't. The footsteps had stopped. I moved down the corridor, checking each office door, all locked, all dark. No signs of forced entry, no indication anyone had been here. But I could smell something, faint but distinct. Coffee, fresh coffee, the kind that's just finished brewing. There was a break room at the end of the hall. I approached it slowly, weapon ready, and pushed the door open with my foot. The coffee maker was on, a full pot, still steaming, but the break room was empty. No cups, no signs anyone had been here to make it. I touched the side of the pot, hot enough to burn. Made within the last 5 minutes. My radio crackled again. That same voice, clearer now. "Agent Carter, you shouldn't be here." I spun, searching for the source. The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Who is this? Identify yourself." "You don't remember me." Not a question, a statement. "But you will. We all come back to Quantico eventually. We never really leave." "I'm calling this in," I said, reaching for my radio. "No, you're not." The voice was calm, almost amused. "You're going to walk to the end of the hall, office 347, and you're going to see what we've been trying to show you. I don't take orders from still here." The voice cut me off, and this time I recognized the words. They were the same ones the witness had used in the 1973 case file I'd been reading earlier tonight. A missing federal employee who'd disappeared from Quantico without a trace. The last thing she'd said to a colleague before vanishing. "I'm still here." Office 347 was at the far end of the corridor. The door was slightly ajar, which was wrong. All doors were supposed to be locked. I approached carefully, pushed it open with my weapons barrel. The office was a time capsule. Wooden desk, typewriter, rotary phone, filing cabinets from the 1970s. And on the desk, a personnel file. Open. The photograph clipped to the inside showed a woman in her 30s, dark hair, professional smile. The name on the file, Margaret Sloan. My mother's maiden name was Sloan, my middle name. But I'd never heard of any Margaret Sloan in my family. I picked up the file. Margaret Sloan, FBI Administrative Specialist, assigned to Quantico Records Division. Disappeared October 15th, 1973. Last seen on night shift. Never found. Case closed as voluntary missing person, though no evidence supported that conclusion. The date made my stomach turn. October 15th, my birthday. 52 years before I was born. My radio crackled. "Do you see now? Do you understand?" "Understand what?" "Why you keep coming back, why you're always here, why you'll never leave." The lights in the office flickered once, twice, then went out completely. In the darkness, I heard breathing. Not my own, someone else's. Close, right behind me. I spun, flashlight cutting through the dark, and saw her. Just for a second. A woman in 1970s office attire, standing 3 feet away, staring at me with eyes that reflected no light. Then the lights came back on, and she was gone, but on the desk, the personnel file was closed. And, on top of it, someone had placed a small brass nameplate. Sloan Carter. My nameplate. The one that should have been on my desk in Minneapolis. I grabbed my radio, called the security office. "This is Agent Carter. I need backup in Building C, Level 3, immediately. Possible intruder." Static. Then a voice I recognized this time, Jerry, one of the night security guards. "Agent Carter, you okay? You sound shook up. There's someone in Building C. I need you to check the security footage for the last 30 minutes. 3rd floor." "Already looking at it. Agent Carter, there's no one in that building. You've been the only person on level 3 for the past hour. I can see you on camera right now, standing in office 347, but you're alone." I looked around the office. No cameras visible. "Jerry, there are no cameras in this office." A pause. "Agent Carter, I'm looking at you right now, through the camera mounted in the northeast corner of office 347. I looked at the northeast corner. Empty wall. No camera. No mounting bracket. Nothing. "Jerry, I need you to come up here, now." "On my way." While I waited, I examined the office more carefully. Everything was period accurate to 1973. The calendar on the wall showed October. The coffee cup on the desk had a faded FBI seal. The typewriter had a half-finished document still in the carriage. I leaned closer to read it. Night shift report, October 15th, 1973. This is my 6th consecutive week on night duty. I've started noticing irregularities, footsteps in empty corridors, voices on the telephone when no one is calling, my own reflection in windows, but moving independently. I believe something is wrong with this building, something that exists in the spaces between shifts, in the hours when no one is watching. I'm going to document everything The text ended mid-sentence, as if she'd stopped typing and never resumed. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Jerry appeared in the doorway, out of breath from climbing the stairs. He was in his late 50s, ex-military, the kind of guy who'd seen enough to not spook easily. But when he looked into the office, his face went pale. "Agent Carter, we need to leave, now." "What's wrong?" "This office doesn't exist." I stared at him. "What do you mean it doesn't exist?" "We're standing in it." Jerry pulled out a building schematic from his jacket pocket, unfolded it. Office 347 was sealed in 1974. Condemned, structural issues. According to this, there's supposed to be a wall here. This whole section was closed off and converted to storage space 40 years ago. I looked at the office around us. Solid, real. Furniture, files, typewriter. This isn't storage space. I know. But according to every blueprint, every renovation record, every building inspection since 1974, Office 347 doesn't exist. It's a sealed room. No one should be able to get inside. Then how? I don't know. Jerry's radio crackled. He answered it. The voice on the other end was his partner, Mike, still in the security office. I could hear the tension in Mike's voice even through the static. "Jerry, you need to get Agent Carter out of there. I just pulled up the 1973 security logs. The last person to access Office 347 before it was sealed was Margaret Sloan. On the night she disappeared. And Jerry, she wasn't alone in that office. Who was with her? The logs show 2 people in the office. Margaret Sloan and..." Mike's voice dropped to a whisper. "Sloan Carter. Logged in at 2:47 a.m. October 15th, 1973. My blood went cold. "That's impossible. I wasn't born until..." "I know," Jerry said. He was backing toward the door. "We need to go. Right now." But the door was closing. Slowly, deliberately, swinging shut with a sound like a sigh. Jerry lunged for it, but it clicked closed just before he reached it. He tried the handle. Locked. "Mike, we're locked in Office 347, Jerry said into his radio. "Send someone up here with master keys." Static. Then Mike's voice, distorted. "Jerry, I'm looking at the camera feed. You're not in Office 347. You're standing in the storage area. There's no door. You're just standing in front of a wall, both of you. I pulled out my phone to call for help. No signal. The screen showed 2:47 a.m. The exact time the voice had first come through my radio. The exact time I'd been logged into this office 52 years ago. Jerry was checking his phone, too. Same. No signal. He looked at me. Agent Carter, I need you to tell me the truth. Have you been here before? In this building? In this office? No. I've only been at Quantico for 3 weeks. Then why does the 1973 security log have your name? Your exact name? I didn't have an answer. But as I stood there trying to make sense of the impossible, I started to notice other things about the office. Details I'd missed before. The coffee cup on the desk had lipstick marks, the same shade I wore. The jacket hanging on the coat rack was my size, my style. And on the corkboard behind the desk, pinned among various FBI memos and notices, was a photograph. It showed a woman standing in front of Building C, professional photo, the kind they take for ID badges. The woman was me, or someone who looked exactly like me. Same face, same hair, same posture. But the photo was aged, corners yellowed, the kind of deterioration that takes decades, and written at the bottom in faded ink, S. Carter, Night Shift, 1973. Jerry. My voice came out as a whisper. Look at this. He moved beside me, stared at the photograph. That's you. It can't be me. I'm 34 years old. This photo is from 1973. Then who is it? Before I could answer, the lights went out again. Complete darkness. I fumbled for my flashlight, but before I could turn it on, I heard it. Breathing. Multiple sources. Coming from all around us. And underneath the breathing, a voice. Whispering the same words over and over. Still here, still here, still here. The lights came back on. Jerry and I were alone in the office, but the typewriter was typing. By itself. Keys pressing down, striking the paper, the sound like gunshots in the silence. We both stared as words appeared on the page. Welcome back, Agent Carter. We've been waiting for you. The night shift never ends. We're all still here. The typing stopped. The office was silent except for our ragged breathing. Then, slowly, the personnel file on the desk opened by itself. Pages turning, flipping past Margaret Sloan's information, past administrative notes, past incident reports, until it reached a blank page at the back. And on that blank page, text was appearing. Not typed, not written, just appearing, letter by letter, as if being burned into the paper by an invisible hand. Sloan Carter, FBI Special Agent, assigned Quantico. Night shift. November 2025 status. Still here, disappeared. November 19th, 2025. 02:47 a.m. Last seen. Building C, Level 3, Office 347. Never found. I looked at my watch. November 19th, 2025. 2:47 a.m. That's today, I said. That's right now. Jerry grabbed my arm. We need to break down this door. We need to get out of here. He charged the door, hitting it with his shoulder. It didn't budge, solid as concrete. He tried again and again, each impact sounding less like wood and more like hitting a wall of stone. My radio crackled. That same voice from before, clearer than ever. You can't leave, Agent Carter. No one leaves the night shift. We tried. All of us tried. But Quantico doesn't let go. It keeps us here in the spaces between. In the offices that don't exist. In the hours that never end. You felt it, didn't you? From the moment you arrived. The way the building watches you. The way time moves differently after dark. The way you keep ending up in places you don't remember going. and with a horrible clarity, I realized the voice was right. I'd been having blackouts, gaps in time during my night shifts. I'd attribute it to exhaustion, to the stress of being exiled from Minneapolis. But now I understood. I hadn't been blacking out. I'd been here, in Office 347, in the spaces between, being pulled back to where I'd always been, where I'd been since 1973. "No," I said. "No, that's insane. I'm real. I'm here now." I remember my life, my career, Minneapolis. "Do you?" the voice asked. "Or do you remember what we all remember? The same loop, the same night? October 15th, 1973. The night the building took us. The night we became part of Quantico. We're all echoes, Agent Carter. Reflections of people who used to exist. And now you're here, where you've always been, where you'll always be." The office door opened. Not the door we'd been trying to break down. A different door, in a wall that hadn't had a door a moment ago. Beyond it, a corridor I didn't recognize, dark, stretching into impossible distances, lined with doors identical to Office 347. Hundreds of them. And from behind each door, I could hear it. Breathing. Whispering. The sound of people who were still here. "No." I backed away from the new door. "This isn't real. This is a psychological attack. Someone trying to make me—" Jerry wasn't moving. He was staring at his hands. "Agent Carter, look at me." I turned to face him. His eyes were wrong, unfocused, looking past me rather than at me. "Jerry?" "I remember now," he said quietly. "I've been here before. I've always been here. My name isn't Jerry. I don't know what my name is. I just know I've been walking these halls for so long. So long, and every night someone new arrives. Someone new joins the shift. And we welcome them because they're family now. They're still here." He started walking toward the new door, toward the impossible corridor. "Jerry, stop!" But he didn't stop. He walked through the doorway, into that darkness, and as he crossed the threshold, I saw something that made my sanity crack. There wasn't just one Jerry, there were dozens of them, hundreds, all walking the same corridor in perfect synchronization, each one a copy of the last, stretching away into that impossible distance. All still here. I was alone in Office 347. The typewriter started again, keys striking faster now, almost violent. Accept it. Accept what you are. Accept where you belong. The night shift is forever. Quantico is forever. You are forever. Still here, still here, still here. And then I heard it. From the corridor beyond. Footsteps. Not one set. Thousands. All in perfect synchronization. All coming toward Office 347. Coming for me. Coming to welcome me home. I ran. Out of the office, down the hallway I'd entered from. The normal hallway. Back toward the stairwell. But the building had changed. The corridor stretched longer than it should, doors appearing that hadn't been there before, all marked with variations of 347. Office 347A, Office 347B, Office 347, 1973, Office 347, 2025. I burst through the stairwell door and started running down, but the stairs kept going. Floor after floor, level after level, descending into depths that shouldn't exist beneath Quantico. Emergency lighting flickered, showing glimpses of other people on the stairs. Other agents, other security guards, all running, all trying to escape, all trapped in the same endless descent. I stopped running, looked up. The stairwell stretched infinitely above me, looked down. Infinitely below. No beginning, no end, just stairs. Just the eternal descent through a building that had no bottom. And that's when I understood. I'd never left Office 347. I was still there, would always be there. This was the space between. The place where Quantico kept its night shift. Forever. My phone rang. I answered without thinking. Agent Carter? A woman's voice, familiar. This is Deputy Director Morrison. We need to talk about your performance review. Director Morrison, I'm trapped in Building C. I need... Building C? She sounded confused. Agent Carter, you're in my office. You've been sitting here for the past 20 minutes. Are you feeling all right? I looked around. I was sitting in an office I didn't recognize. Daylight streaming through windows. A desk between me and a woman in her 50s wearing a bureau suit. Director Morrison, though I'd never met her in person. I was in Building C, Office 347. There was, Agent Carter, there is no Office 347 in Building C. That section was sealed in the 70s. She pulled out a file, opened it. I'm concerned about these reports from your night shift supervisors. They say you've been experiencing disorientation, time loss, claiming to be in places that don't exist. This is the third incident this month. Third, We're going to have you evaluated by Bureau Psychological Services. Standard procedure after field trauma. Nothing to be concerned about. She stood, extended her hand. We'll get you sorted out, Agent Carter. The Bureau takes care of its own. I shook her hand on autopilot, walked out of her office in a daze. The corridor outside was normal. Daylight, people walking, phones ringing, normal FBI operations. I checked my phone. 9:47 a.m., November 19th, 2025. Had I imagined it all? Office 347, Jerry, the impossible corridor. Had it been some kind of breakdown? But in my pocket, I felt something. I pulled it out, a brass nameplate, Sloan Carter, the one from the desk in Office 347. I was holding it when I saw my reflection in a window, and my reflection smiled at me, a smile I didn't make. Behind my reflection, in the window's image, I could see Office 347, the typewriter, the filing cabinets, and dozens of people standing in the background, all staring at me, all still here. The reflection mouthed two words, night shift. And I realized with absolute horror that it was 9:47 a.m., not p.m. a.m., but the sun was shining. Or was it? I looked closer at the light coming through the windows. It was wrong. Too bright, too artificial. Like stage lighting, like the fluorescent lights in Building C. I was still there, still in the night shift, still in the spaces between. I'd never left. I never would. And tonight, at 2:47 a.m., I'd be back in Office 347, waiting for the next person to arrive, ready to welcome them home. Because we're all still here. We're always still here. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at my reflection in that window. Time had stopped meaning anything. The brass nameplate was cold in my hand, solid and real in a way nothing else felt anymore. Around me, the FBI headquarters bustled with normal activity. Agents moving between offices, phones ringing, keyboards clicking. But I could feel it underneath, the wrongness, the impossibility. I tried to focus. I was FBI, trained to observe, to analyze, to find patterns. So I started walking, paying attention to details. The people around me looked normal at first glance, but when I looked closer, I started to notice things. The agent passing me in the corridor walked with a slight limp. 3 steps later, I passed the same agent again, walking the opposite direction. Same limp, same briefcase, same expression. When I turned to look back, there were 4 of him, all walking in different directions. The receptionist at the front desk answered the phone. FBI Quantico, how may I direct your call? Pause. FBI Quantico, how may I direct your call? Same inflection, same pause. Over and over, the phone hadn't rung again. A clock on the wall showed 9:47. I watched it for 3 full minutes. The second hand moved, the minute hand advanced, but the hour stayed frozen. 9:47. Always 9:47. 7 hours until the night shift. 7 hours until 2:47 a.m. when I'd be back in office 3:47. Except I'd never left. I needed to find someone real. Someone who could confirm I wasn't losing my mind. I pulled out my phone to call my former partner in Minneapolis, Agent Rodriguez. But when I opened my contacts, there was only one entry. Night shift. I hadn't saved that number. I'd never seen it before, but when I tried to delete it, it just reappeared. The only contact in my phone. The only number I could call. Agent Carter? A voice behind me. I turned to see a man in his 40s. FBI badge on his belt. Professional smile. I'm Agent Dalton Hayes, building security. I understand you've been having some experiences during your night shifts. I didn't recognize him, but something about his name tugged at memory. Hayes. I'd seen that name before. Where? I'm fine, I said automatically. Of course you are. But Director Morrison asked me to check in. Make sure you're settling into your new assignment. His smile never wavered. The night shift can be disorienting for new personnel. The empty buildings, the silence. People sometimes report unusual experiences. Like what? Oh, the usual. Footsteps in empty corridors, voices on radios when no one's transmitting, offices that appear to exist but don't show up on blueprints. He said it casually, like he was describing routine maintenance issues. All perfectly normal psychological responses to sensory deprivation and isolation. Is it normal to find your own nameplate in an office that was sealed 40 years before you were born? Hayes's smile flickered. Just for a second. May I see that? I showed him the brass nameplate. Sloan Carter. He examined it carefully, turning it over in his hands. Where did you find this? Office 347. There is no Office 347. I know. That's the problem. Hayes handed the nameplate back. Agent Carter, I'm going to be honest with you. You're not the first person to report experiences in Building C. In fact, there's been a pattern of incidents going back decades. Always on night shift. Always in that same section of Level 3. The Bureau's position is that it's architectural. Old wiring creating electromagnetic fields that affect perception. But between you and me, he leaned closer. I think it's something else. What? I think Quantico has a memory. Buildings do, you know, especially old ones. Places where significant events occurred, where people spent enormous amounts of time. The building absorbs them, holds on to them, and sometimes it plays those memories back. That's not possible. Neither is an office that doesn't exist. Neither is being logged into a building 52 years before you were born. Neither is any of what you experienced last night. But you did experience it, didn't you? And I believe you, because I've seen it too. He pulled out his phone, showed me a photograph. It was Building C at night, taken from the parking lot. But something was wrong with the image. On the 3rd floor, several windows were lit, and in those windows I could see figures. Dozens of them. All standing motionless, all staring down at the camera. I took this 3 nights ago, Hayes said, after I got reports from the night shift about unusual activity. But when I went up to Level 3 to investigate, those offices were empty. Dark. According to the security system, no one had been there all night. But I saw them, Agent Carter. People who aren't supposed to exist. People who are still here. Who are they? Former FBI personnel, mostly. People who worked at Quantico over the decades. Some resigned, some retired, some died, but all of them spent significant time on night shift, and now he trailed off, looking at the photograph with something like sadness. Now they're part of the building, echoes of people who used to be real. That's insane. Is it? Think about it. Quantum physics tells us that observation affects reality, that the act of perceiving something changes it. What if buildings work the same way? What if every person who walks these halls leaves a trace, an imprint? And what if, under the right conditions, those imprints become observable, become real? I thought about Jerry, how he'd said he'd been here before, how he'd walked into that corridor full of copies of himself. The security guard last night. Jerry, is he? Gerald Marcus, yes. He's been on night shift for 20 years, and for the last 5 years, he's been reporting experiences similar to yours. Seeing himself in places he hasn't been. Hearing his own voice giving security reports he never made. I've tried to get him reassigned to day shift, but he refuses. Says he can't leave. Says the building needs him here. Where is he now? Hayes checked his phone. According to the schedule, he's on duty tonight. Starts at 11 p.m. He looked at me carefully. Agent Carter, I'm going to tell you something that could get me fired. The Bureau knows about this. Has known for decades. But they suppress the information because Quantico is too valuable as a training facility. They can't have rumors of hauntings or psychological effects scaring off recruits. So they relocate people who report experiences. They classify incidents as stress-related breakdowns. They bury the evidence. Like they're doing with me. Exactly. The performance review, the psychological evaluation, that's not about helping you. That's about documenting a reason to transfer you somewhere else before you start asking too many questions or talking to the press. They'll move you to Alaska or Hawaii, somewhere far from Quantico, and you'll be gone. Problem solved. But the echoes will still be here. The echoes will always be here. Hayes put his phone away. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Because you have two options. You can accept the transfer, leave Quantico, spend the rest of your career knowing what you saw but never being able to prove it. Or you can stay. Work the night shift tonight. Try to understand what's happening. Maybe even help the others. Help them how? I don't know, but they're trying to communicate something. All those voices, all those appearances, they're not random. They're showing you something, warning you about something, and I think it has to do with 1973, with Margaret Sloan. That name again. The woman whose file I'd found in Office 347. The woman who'd disappeared on the night shift. The woman whose maiden name I shared. Who was she? Hayes pulled out a folder from his jacket. Inside was a thick file marked Classified. Margaret Sloan was FBI administrative personnel. Worked in Records Division at Quantico starting in 1971. In 1973, she was assigned to night shift as part of a security restructuring. On October 15th of that year, she was working Level 3 of Building C when she reported unusual activity over the radio. Said she was hearing voices, seeing people who weren't supposed to be there. Security found her office empty. She was never seen again. Office 347. The file doesn't specify, just says Level 3 Records Division. But the next week, the Bureau ordered that entire section sealed. Called it structural damage. But the work crews who did the sealing reported strange experiences. Feeling watched. Hearing voices. One worker swore he saw a woman in 1970s office attire standing in one of the rooms they were walling off. When he went to ask if she needed to leave before they sealed the area, she vanished. I looked at the file. Margaret Sloan's photograph stared back at me. The resemblance was undeniable. Same bone structure, same eyes, same posture in the photo. It was like looking at a relative I'd never known I had. "Do you have family information on her?" I asked. Hayes flipped through the file. "Parents deceased as of 1973. No siblings. Unmarried. No children." He paused, reading something. "Wait, there's a note here. Medical records indicate she was 3 months pregnant at the time of her disappearance. Father unknown. The pregnancy was kept confidential per her request." 3 months pregnant. October 1973. If she'd given birth, the child would have been born in, I did the math, April 1974. My mother was born in April 1974. Adopted. Birth mother's identity sealed. My grandmother had told me the adoption was handled through a government agency, but she'd never been able to get details. "No," I said. "No, that's not possible. Margaret Sloan disappeared. She couldn't have had a child." "Unless she didn't disappear," Hayes said quietly. "Unless she escaped. Left Quantico, had the child. Gave it up for adoption. Maybe she knew something was wrong with this place and she got out while she could. But if that was true, it meant Margaret Sloan was my grandmother. It meant I was genetically connected to the woman who disappeared from Office 347. It meant Quantico had been waiting for me, calling me back to where I belonged." "Still here?" I whispered. Hayes looked at me with something like pity. "Agent Carter, you don't have to do this. You can request immediate transfer, leave tonight, get far away from Quantico, and never come back. Can I? Or will I just end up back here like Jerry, like all the others?" I looked at the photograph of Building C with its windows full of watching figures. "They're trapped, aren't they? The echoes. They can't leave. They're bound to this place." "I think so, yes." "Then running won't help. If I'm connected to Margaret Sloan, if there's something in my genetics or my family history that makes me vulnerable to whatever's happening here, then I'll just get pulled back. Maybe not physically, maybe just mentally, but I'll never really escape. So, what will you do?" I looked at the brass nameplate in my hand. Sloan Carter. A name that existed in both 1973 and 2025. A name that connected me to this place across 5 decades. "I'm going to work my shift tonight. I'm going to go back to Office 347, and I'm going to find out what they're trying to tell me." Hayes nodded slowly. "Then you'll need this." He handed me a small device that looked like an old tape recorder. "It's a modified EVP detector. Picks up electronic voice phenomena. The echoes can't always interact with our reality directly, but they can affect electronics, radios, recording devices. If you want to communicate with them, this might help." I took the device. "Why are you helping me?" "Because I've worked at Quantico for 15 years, and I've seen what this place does to people. I've watched agents disappear. Not physically, but mentally. Watch them become hollow versions of themselves, going through the motions of life but not really living. I don't want that to happen to you. And maybe, just maybe, if someone finally figures out what's happening here, we can help the others. Free them, let them rest. Or join them. That's a possibility too," Hayes admitted. "But at least you'll know the truth. And the truth is worth something, even if it destroys you." He was right. I'd joined the FBI to find truth, to bring justice to victims who couldn't speak for themselves. The echoes in Quantico were victims too, trapped by something they didn't understand, unable to move on, forced to repeat the same patterns forever. If I could help them, I had to try, even if it meant becoming one of them. I spent the rest of the day researching everything I could find about Margaret Sloan and the 1973 incident. Most of the files were classified, but Hayes helped me access what existed. I learned that Margaret had reported strange experiences for weeks before her disappearance. Hearing her own voice on recordings she hadn't made. Seeing herself in security footage from times when she was provably elsewhere. Finding personal items in places she'd never been. The same things I was experiencing. The last entry in her file was a handwritten note, barely legible. They keep saying I'm still here, but I'm not. I'm trying to leave. I have to leave, for the baby. But every door just leads back to 347. Every stairwell goes in circles. I think I've been here forever. I think I'll be here forever. Tell my child I tried to. The note ended there, unfinished, like she'd been interrupted mid-sentence. By 10 p.m. I was back in Building C. The day shift had ended hours ago. The building was empty except for the skeleton crew of night security. I signed in at the main desk. There was a new guard I didn't recognize, which struck me as odd since I'd met everyone on night rotation. He barely looked at me, just pushed the logbook across the desk. I signed, Sloan Carter, 2200, Building C Patrol. As I finished writing, I noticed the previous entries. They went back weeks. All the same handwriting. All the same name. Sloan Carter, 2200, Building C Patrol. Sloan Carter, 2200, Building C Patrol. Sloan Carter, 22, Building, in C Patrol. Dozens of entries, all identical, all supposedly written by me. But I'd only been at Quantico for 3 weeks. "How long have I been signing in?" I asked the guard. He looked at me with the eyes that seemed to focus somewhere beyond me. "You've always been signing in. Every night, for as long as I can remember." "How long have you worked here?" He had to think about it. I don't remember. A long time. Long enough that I can't remember when I started. Or my name. Or..." He trailed off, staring at his hands like he was seeing them for the first time. I backed away from the desk, my heart pounding. This guard was an echo too, trapped in his routine, signing people in night after night, unable to remember anything beyond the loop he was stuck in. How many of the people I'd interacted with at Quantico were real? How many were echoes? Was I? I pushed that thought away and headed for the stairwell. I had a job to do. I was going to Office 347, and I was going to find answers. The building felt different tonight. More aware. Like it knew I was coming back. The fluorescent lights hummed louder, flickered more frequently. My footsteps echoed not just once, but multiple times, creating a rhythm that sounded like a dozen people walking in sync. When I reached level 3, the hallway had changed. More doors than before. All numbered in the 340s. 341, 342, 343, 344, 345, 346, and then a gap. No 347. Just blank wall where the door should have been. But I could hear it. Behind the wall, the sound of a typewriter, clacking keys, striking paper. Someone was in there. Someone was still working. I touched the wall where Office 347 should have been. The surface was cold, but underneath I could feel vibrations, like the wall was breathing, like something on the other side was trying to get out, or trying to pull me in. "I'm here," I said. "I came back. What do you want to show me?" The vibrations stopped. The typewriter sound ceased. Silence for 5 heartbeats. Then the wall began to fade. Not crumbling, not opening, just becoming transparent like a fog dissipating. And through it, I could see Office 347. But it wasn't empty anymore. It was full of people. Dozens of them. All dressed in FBI attire from different eras. 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, 2000s. All standing motionless, all staring at the desk where I'd found Margaret Sloane's file. And sitting at that desk, typing on the old typewriter, was a woman in 1970s office attire, Margaret Sloane. She looked up at me. Her eyes were hollow but aware. She smiled, but it was the saddest smile I'd ever seen. Then she spoke, and her voice echoed from everywhere at once. "Welcome home, Sloane. We've been waiting for you. The family's all here. All still here. And now you can join us. Forever." The wall solidified again, cutting off my view of the office. But I could still hear her, still hear all of them, whispering in unison, "Still here, still here, still here." And I realized with horror that the countdown had begun. 5 hours until 2:47 a.m. 5 hours until I became an echo. I stood in that hallway for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, trying to process what I'd just seen. Dozens of people trapped in Office 347. Decades of FBI personnel, all caught in the same loop, all unable to leave. And Margaret Sloane at the center of it, still typing, still working, still here after 52 years. The EVP detector in my pocket suddenly activated, emitting a low static hiss. I pulled it out. The LED display flickered, showing interference patterns. Then a voice came through, broken by static but unmistakable. "Help us. Can't leave. Trapped in the moment. 2:47. Forever." 2:47. I pressed the record button. "This is Special Agent Sloane Carter. Can you hear me? Who's speaking?" The static intensified, then cleared. A male voice, younger, filled with desperation. "Agent Carter, my name is..." Static. "Been here since..." More static. 1993. I was working night shift. I heard voices. Followed them to level 3, and then I couldn't find the exit. Every door led back here. Every stairwell looped. I've been walking these halls for 32 years, and I can't... The voice cut off. The detector went silent. I checked my watch, 11:23 p.m. 3 hours and 24 minutes until 2:47 a.m. I needed to understand what was happening before that deadline, before I joined the Echoes permanently. I pulled out my phone and called Hayes. It rang once, then his voice. "Agent Carter, I was hoping you'd call. Are you all right?" Define all right. I just saw Margaret Sloane, and dozens of other people, all trapped in Office 347. "Hayes, what's really happening here? This isn't just psychological. This is real." "I know. I've been doing more research since we talked." "Agent Carter, have you heard of temporal displacement? Like time travel?" "Not exactly. More like time folding. Quantum physics suggests that all moments exist simultaneously. Past, present, future. They're all happening at once, just separated by dimensional barriers. What if something at Quantico has weakened those barriers? What if certain locations, under certain conditions, allow multiple time frames to overlap?" Office 347. Exactly. I found something in the archived architectural records. That office was built on the site of an older structure. Before the FBI used this facility, it was a military installation during World War II. And before that, it was a psychiatric hospital in the 1920s. Multiple buildings, multiple purposes, all on the same geographical coordinates. So, Office 347 exists in multiple time periods simultaneously. That's my theory. And the people who get too close to it, who spend too much time there, especially during the night shift when reality is already thin, they get caught in the overlap. They become part of all the time frames at once. Echoes that exist in 1973 and 93 and 2025 simultaneously. I thought about the security logs. my name signed in during 1973. Then I was there. I really was there in 1973. But I wasn't born yet. How is that possible? Because you're there now. And if Office 347 exists outside normal time, then now doesn't mean what we think it means. You're experiencing it in 2025, but an echo of that experience exists in 1973. The building recorded your presence and has been replaying it ever since. That's insane. I know, but it fits the evidence. Agent Carter, listen to me carefully. You need to break the loop. Everyone who's gotten trapped has made the same mistake. They keep going back to Office 347, trying to understand it, trying to escape. But every time they return, they strengthen their connection to the overlap. They become more echo than human. Eventually, they lose their anchor to the present and get stuck in the past. So, I should leave. Get out of Building C, never come back. That's one option, but what? Hayes was quiet for a moment. But I don't think it'll let you go now. You're Margaret Sloane's granddaughter. You have a genetic connection to the original event, the first time someone got trapped. The building has been calling you here your entire life, even before you joined the FBI. You can feel it, can't you? The pull. The sense that you belong here. He was right. I'd felt it from my first day at Quantico. Not fear or unease, but familiarity. Like coming home to a place I'd never been. Like the building recognized me and was welcoming me back. Then what do I do? There's another option. A way to break the loop not just for you, but for all of them. The echoes are trapped because they keep experiencing the same moment. 2:47 a.m., the time when the overlap is strongest. But what if you could change that moment? Do something different than they did? Create a new pattern that disrupts the existing one? How? I don't know. But I think Margaret Sloane does. She's been in the loop longest. She's had 52 years to understand how it works. You need to talk to her, really talk to her. Not just hear her voice through the walls, but establish actual communication. Find out what she learned, what she tried, why she failed. And how do I do that? You go into Office 347, physically enter it. Become part of the overlap voluntarily. It's dangerous. You might not be able to get back out. But it's the only way to interact with her directly, to access the knowledge she's accumulated over decades of being trapped. I looked at the wall where the office door had appeared and vanished. If I go in there, I might never come out. I know. That's why I'm giving you a way back. Hayes's voice changed, became more urgent. I'm going to do something that could get me fired. At exactly 2:46 a.m., 1 minute before the overlap peaks, I'm going to trigger the building's fire alarm. It'll disrupt the electrical systems, create chaos, maybe weaken the temporal fold enough for you to escape. But you have to be ready. You have to be moving toward an exit at 2:46. If you're still in Office 347 when the clock hits 2:47, you're lost. 1 minute to get from level 3 to the ground floor. It's not enough time, I know, but it's all I can give you. The rest is up to you. Agent Carter, I need you to understand. If you do this, if you go into Office 347, you're betting your life on being able to move faster than time itself. The odds aren't good. Better than the odds of doing nothing and becoming an echo anyway. True. Good luck, Agent Carter. And if you do get trapped, I'll make sure people remember you. The real you, not just an echo. He hung up. I was alone in the hallway, staring at the blank wall that hid Office 347. 11:47 p.m. 3 hours until 2:47 a.m. 3 hours to figure out how to break a temporal loop that had been running for 52 years. I touched the wall again. Margaret, I know you can hear me. I'm your granddaughter. I know that sounds impossible, but I've seen the files, I've done the math. You were pregnant when you disappeared. You had a daughter. My mother. And now I'm here, in the same building, dealing with the same nightmare you faced. Please, help me. Help all of us. The wall remained solid. No response. No door appearing. I tried again. My name is Sloane Carter. I'm 34 years old. I'm an FBI agent. I'm real. I'm not an echo. Not yet. But I will be if I can't stop this. And I think you know how to stop it. You've been trying to tell us for 50 years. All those whispers, all those appearances, all those voices saying, "Still here." That's not just a description. It's a warning. A clue. You're telling us you're still here because you haven't figured out how to leave. But maybe together we can. Blood to blood. Sloane to Sloane, please. Silence. Then, faintly, the sound of the typewriter. Clack. 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 The wall began to fade again. But this time, it didn't just become transparent. It opened, a real door, solid and physical, appearing in the wall like it had always been there. The brass plate read 347. The door swung inward. Beyond it, Office 347. But different than before. Empty of people now. Just the desk, the typewriter, the filing cabinets. And Margaret Sloane, sitting in the chair, her hands poised over the typewriter keys. She looked up at me with those hollow eyes. "Come in," she said. Her voice was clear now, not distorted by walls or time. "We don't have much time. The loop resets at 2:47. Before then, you need to understand what you're dealing with." I stepped through the doorway. The temperature dropped immediately. My breath misted. The door swung shut behind me with a sound of finality. Margaret stood, gestured to a second chair that hadn't been there before. "Sit. Listen. I can only maintain clarity for short periods. The loop tries to reset my memories, make me forget everything except that one night in October 1973. But I've been fighting it, building up resistance, learning how it works." I sat. What is this place? Why does it trap people? It's not a place, not really. It's a moment. October 15th, 1973, 2:47 a.m. That's when it started, when I first noticed the overlap. I was working late, filing documents, and I heard something. Footsteps in the hallway. But when I checked, no one was there. Then I heard my own voice on the radio, reporting an intrusion. But I hadn't picked up the radio. The voice was saying things I would say, but hadn't said yet. Future echoes. Exactly. I was hearing my own future self, reporting the same incident I was experiencing. And once I heard that first echo, I became trapped in the loop. Every night since then, I've been experiencing the same sequence of events. Hearing the footsteps, checking the hallway, picking up the radio, over and over, thousands of times. But you're here now, talking to me. You broke the loop, only partially. I'm conscious right now because you're here. Your presence disrupts the pattern just enough for me to have moments of clarity. But when you leave, I'll reset. Go back to repeating the same actions, unless we can break it permanently. How? Margaret walked to the desk, pulled open a drawer. Inside were dozens of notebooks, all filled with handwriting. 52 years of observations. Every time I gain clarity, I write down what I've learned before the loop resets. I've figured out the rules. The office exists in all time frames simultaneously. 1920s, 1940s, 1973, 1993, 2025, and beyond. It's a nexus point. Every person who enters it leaves an echo. Those echoes exist forever, playing out their actions on repeat. But here's the key. The echoes only have power because they're incomplete. Incomplete how? They never finish. I never finish typing my report. The security guard never completes his rounds. The agent in 93 never finds the exit. We're all caught mid-action, frozen in the moment just before resolution. That's what keeps the loop running. The building feeds on unfinished business. I thought about the note I'd found, the one that ended mid-sentence. So we need to finish something. Complete an action that's been left undone. Yes, but it has to be the right action. I've tried everything I can think of. Finishing my report, walking out the door, calling for help. Nothing works, because those aren't the actions that matter. Those aren't what created the loop in the first place. Then what did? Margaret sat back down, her face showing the weight of 52 years. I made a choice that night. When I first heard the echoes, when I realized something impossible was happening, I had two options. Leave immediately, report it to my supervisors, let someone else handle it. Or stay, investigate, try to understand. I chose to stay. I thought I was being brave, being thorough. I didn't know I was sealing my fate. So, the action that needs to be completed is leaving? Not just leaving. Choosing to leave. Making the decision I should have made that night. But I can't do it. I've been here too long. I'm part of the loop now. My decision to stay has been repeated so many times that it's become fundamental to how the office exists. If I try to leave, the loop just resets, and I'm back at my desk. But I could leave. I haven't been here long enough to become fundamental. That's what I'm hoping. You're connected to me by blood, which means you can interact with the loop in ways others can't. You can access my memories, see what I've seen, know what I know. And then you can make the choice I failed to make. Walk away. Break the pattern. I looked around the office. But what happens to all of them, the other echoes? If I break the loop, do they get freed, or do they just cease to exist? I don't know. But either way, it's better than this. Existing forever in a single moment, unable to move forward or back. Just repeating the same actions endlessly. That's not life. It's barely existence. If you can end it, you should, even if it means ending us along with it. I checked my watch, 12:47 a.m. 2 hours until the peak. 2 hours to decide if I was willing to condemn dozens of people, echoes of people, to oblivion in order to save myself. There's something you're not telling me, I said, about why I'm really here. It's not just because I'm your granddaughter. It's something else. Margaret smiled sadly. You're perceptive. Yes, there's more. The reason you were assigned to Quantico, the reason you had the incident in Minneapolis that got you transferred here, none of it was coincidence. The building arranged it. The loop has been trying to bring you here since you were born. Because you're the only person who can end it. You're the completion of what I started. I don't understand. I was pregnant when I got trapped. 3 months along. And for 52 years I've existed in this moment. Which means the baby has existed in this moment too. Never born, never not born, just suspended in potential. That's you, Sloan. You're the unfinished action. The thing that was never completed. If you can finish what I started, if you can make the choice to leave and actually succeed in leaving, then you'll be born properly, outside the loop. And the pattern will break because the central paradox will be resolved. I felt dizzy. You're saying I don't exist? That I'm some kind of temporal anomaly? You exist. You're real. But you're also trapped between states just like everything else in this office. Part of you was born in the normal timeline. Grew up, became an FBI agent. But part of you has always been here in 1973, waiting to be born. The building has been holding on to that unborn part, using it as an anchor to keep the loop running. If you can sever that connection, if you can become fully real in just one timeline, the loop collapses. And you? What happens to you? I finally get to finish my pregnancy, give birth, move on, whatever that means when you've been temporarily displaced for half a century. She stood, moved to the door. But it has to be your choice, Sloan. I can't force you. If you decide to stay, to become part of the loop, to let it continue, that's your right. You'll exist here forever, with me and all the others. Still here, always still here. It's not a good existence, but it is existence. Or you leave. Now, before 2:47. You walk out that door, down the stairs, out of Building C. You don't look back. You don't second guess. You just go. And when the fire alarm sounds at 2:46, you're already moving, already escaping. You break free of the building's pull, return to the normal timeline, and live your life. And we get to end, finally, after 52 years. I looked at my watch again. 1:17 a.m., 1 hour and 30 minutes. Time was running out, and I had to decide. Save myself and end their eternal loop. Or stay and join them, preserving their existence but condemning myself to the same fate. Margaret moved to the typewriter, began typing. Whatever you choose, I want you to know, I'm sorry. Sorry I couldn't protect you from this. Sorry I made the wrong choice 52 years ago. Sorry that my mistake has haunted you your entire life. But I'm also grateful. Grateful that you came here. Grateful that you gave me these moments of clarity. Grateful that whatever happens, I got to meet my granddaughter. She pulled the paper from the typewriter, handed it to me. It read, Sloan. The loop resets at 2:47. If you're going to leave, start moving at 2:45. Give yourself 2 minutes. Don't wait for the alarm. Don't hesitate. Just run. The building will try to stop you. It will make the corridors loop, make the stairs endless, make every door lead back here. But if you keep moving, if you refuse to stop, you can break through. I believe in you. Love, Margaret. Still here, but hopefully, soon, not. I folded the paper, put it in my pocket. I'm going to need something from you. Information. About the building, about the loop. Everything you've learned in 52 years. Margaret smiled. Sit down. We have an hour and a half. I'll tell you everything. And she did. Margaret's knowledge was encyclopedic. 52 years of observing the loop, testing its boundaries, trying to understand its rules. She'd documented everything in her notebooks, the precise timing of when echoes appeared, which corridors looped and which ones remained stable, how the building's architecture changed depending on what time period you were perceiving. The key, she explained, is that the building operates on perception. It's not that the corridors physically change or the stairs actually become endless. It's that when you're inside the loop, your perception of space and time becomes distorted. The building feeds on your expectations. If you expect to get lost, you will. If you believe the exit is impossible to find, it becomes impossible. So it's psychological. Partly, but it's also real. The temporal displacement is actual, not imagined. You really are experiencing multiple time frames simultaneously. The trick is to maintain your anchor to the present while navigating through the past. Stay focused on 2025. Don't let yourself slip into thinking it's 1973 or 93 or any other year. The moment you lose track of when you are, the building has you. She showed me her notebooks, page after page of carefully documented observations. I noticed the handwriting changed subtly throughout, starting neat and controlled in the early entries, becoming more manic and desperate in the middle years, then settling into a kind of resigned precision in the more recent ones. "I was angry for a long time," Margaret said, noticing what I was looking at. Angry at myself for staying that night. Angry at the building for trapping me. Angry at the bureau for sealing this section instead of trying to help me. But anger doesn't change anything here. The loop doesn't care about emotion. It just continues, eternal and indifferent. 2 a.m. 47 minutes until the deadline. I could feel the pressure building, like the air in the office was becoming heavier, thicker. The temporal overlap was intensifying. "Tell me about the fire alarm plan," Margaret said. "Your contact on the outside, Hayes, you said? He's going to trigger it at 2:46? That's the plan. Create enough disruption to weaken the temporal fold." Margaret frowned. "It might work, but you need to understand, when 2:47 hits, the loop resets violently. Everything snaps back to the beginning. If you're still in the building when that happens, you'll get caught in the reset. And resets are cumulative. The more times you experience one, the harder it becomes to maintain your sense of self. After enough resets, you forget who you were outside the loop. You become just another echo, repeating actions you no longer understand. How many resets have you experienced?" She had to calculate. "At least 18,980, once per day for 52 years. Give or take a few thousand for the times I've had clarity and managed to stay conscious through multiple loops. Nearly 19,000 repetitions of the same moment. No wonder her eyes looked hollow. No wonder she'd almost forgotten how to be human." "I'm going to get you out of here," I said. "All of you. I'm going to break this loop." "I appreciate the sentiment, but you need to focus on saving yourself. The echoes. We're not really people anymore. We're just patterns, repeated information. Even if you broke the loop, we wouldn't go back to being who we were. We'd just stop, cease to exist. And honestly, Sloan, after 52 years of this, cessation sounds like mercy." My radio crackled. Hayes's voice came through, urgent. "Agent Carter, I've been monitoring the building's electrical systems. Something's wrong. The power fluctuations are increasing. It's like the building knows you're in there, knows you're planning to escape. It's trying to accelerate the loop." I checked my watch, 2:03 a.m. But even as I watched, the numbers flickered. 2:03, 2:17, 2:31, 2:42. The display was jumping forward, showing different times from different loops, different iterations of this night. "It started," Margaret said. "The building's defenses. It's trying to confuse your perception of time, make you miss your window to escape. How do I fight it? Don't look at clocks. Don't try to track time externally. Trust your internal sense. Count seconds if you have to. Humans have an innate ability to feel time passing. Use that instead of relying on devices the building can manipulate." I closed my eyes, started counting. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. Building a rhythm, a pattern I could trust that existed independent of the loop. When I opened my eyes again, Margaret was standing at the window, looking out at the Quantico grounds. I used to watch the sunrise from this window, in the normal world, I mean, before I got trapped. The way the light would hit the trees, turn everything gold. I haven't seen a sunrise in 52 years. The loop always resets before dawn. "You will," I said. When this is over, you'll see sunrise again." She smiled, but didn't turn around. "I hope you're right. But I've learned not to hope for much in here. Hope makes the disappointment worse when the loop resets." My radio crackled again. "Hayes, Agent Carter, 20 minutes until my alarm. Are you ready?" I wasn't, not really, but I would be. I had to be. "Margaret, I need to know. What happens to the other echoes when the loop breaks? The guard, the agents from other years, all the people trapped here, do they just vanish?" She turned from the window. "I think so. We're sustained by the loop. When it ends, we end with it. But Sloan, you have to understand. That's not death. We're already dead, in a sense. We're just information, patterns repeating. Breaking the loop is just turning off the recording." I thought about Jerry, the security guard. About the agent from 1993 who'd been walking these halls for 32 years. About all the people who'd gotten caught in this temporal trap. They deserved rest. They deserved an end. But ending them felt like murder. "I see the doubt in your eyes," Margaret said. "You're thinking you can't do it. Can't condemn us to cessation. But let me ask you this. If you were trapped in an endless loop, experiencing the same moment forever, never able to move forward or change or grow, wouldn't you want someone to end it? Wouldn't you beg for that mercy?" She was right. I would. After even a few loops, let alone thousands, I'd want it to stop. Would choose oblivion over eternal repetition. "Okay," I said. "I'll do it. I'll break the loop. But I need your help. I need you to tell me exactly what to do, step by step." Margaret moved back to her desk, pulled out a specific notebook. "I've been planning this for years, working out the exact sequence of actions that should break the pattern. But I could never execute it myself. I'm too deeply embedded in the loop. You'll have to do it for me." She opened the notebook to a marked page. A detailed diagram showed Building C's layout, with arrows indicating a path from Office 347 to the main exit. But it wasn't a straight line. It looped and doubled back, showing multiple routes that led to the same destinations. "The building will try to trap you in spatial loops," Margaret explained. "You'll walk down a corridor and end up where you started. Take the stairs down and find yourself on a higher floor. The trick is to recognize when you're looping and break the pattern. Here." She pointed to specific junctions on the diagram. "At each of these points you'll feel a pull to continue straight. That's the loop trying to catch you. Instead, turn around. Walk backwards." It sounds counterintuitive, but walking backwards breaks the spatial manipulation. You'll actually make progress toward the exit. Walk backwards through Building C at 2:45 in the morning, while the building is actively trying to trap me. That sounds insane. It is insane, but it's also the only way. She flipped to another page. Timing is critical. The loop peaks at exactly 2:47 qua, but there's a brief window from 2:46:45 to 2:47. 15 seconds when the loop is transitioning, when reality is malleable. If you can reach the main exit during those 15 seconds, you can break through. 15 seconds. The main exit is 3 floors away. I know. That's why you need to start moving at exactly 2:45 qua. Give yourself 2 minutes to cover the distance. It's theoretically possible, but it requires perfect execution. Any hesitation, any wrong turn, any moment of doubt, and you'll miss the window. I studied the diagram, memorizing the path. Straight out of 3:47. Left at the corridor junction. Walk backwards down the hallway. Right at the stairwell, backwards down the stairs. Ground floor, walk backwards to the lobby, then forward through the main doors during the 15-second window. "What about you?" I asked. "When the loop breaks, where will you be?" "Here, in this office. Experiencing the moment I've experienced 19,000 times. Except this time, when it resets, it won't reset. It'll just end. And so will I." She saw the look on my face. "Don't mourn me, Sloan. I've had 52 years to make peace with this. I'm ready. I've been ready for decades." I checked my watch, or rather, I didn't check it. I relied on my internal count. Based on my rhythm, it was approximately 2:38 a.m. 7 minutes until I needed to move. "One more thing," Margaret said. "When you leave this office, the other echoes will try to stop you. Not out of malice, but because they're part of the loop. They'll repeat their scripted actions, which means getting in your way. Don't let them slow you down. Don't stop to help or explain. Just keep moving. What if I see you, your echo, in the hallway? You will. I'm part of almost every iteration of the loop. When you see me, I'll probably try to warn you about something or ask you to help me understand what's happening. Ignore me. The echo doesn't know what we know. She's just repeating the same actions from October 15th, 1973. The real me, what's left of her, is here, in this moment of clarity. And she's telling you to run." We sat in silence for a moment. Outside the window, Quantico remained dark and still. No sunrise coming. No dawn. Just the eternal 2:47 a.m. of the loop, waiting to reset. "I'm scared," I admitted. "Good. Fear means you're still human, still anchored to reality. The echoes don't feel fear anymore. We don't feel much of anything. Use that fear, let it motivate you. Run faster, fight harder, refuse to give up. That's how you'll make it out." My internal clock hit 2:44:30. 90 seconds until go time. I stood, moved to the door. "Sloan," Margaret's voice stopped me. "Thank you for coming here, for listening, for being willing to try. Whatever happens, know that you gave an old woman one last moment of genuine human connection before the end. That means more than you can imagine." I wanted to hug her, to offer some kind of physical comfort, but I was afraid that touching her would somehow tangle me deeper in the loop. So I just nodded. "I'll make it out, for both of us." 2:45 o'clock. I opened the door and ran. The hallway outside Office 347 had changed. Now there were hundreds of doors, all numbered 347 with different suffixes. 347A, 347B, 347 Alpha, 347 Omega. And from behind each door, I could hear voices. My voice, Margaret's voice. The voices of all the echoes, all talking at once, creating a cacophony of overlapping warnings and pleas and statements. Don't leave. Still here. Can't escape. Help us. Join us. 247. Forever. Still here. I ran left at the junction, just like Margaret's diagram showed. The corridor stretched ahead of me, impossibly long. I could see the end, a turn that should lead to the stairwell, but it seemed to recede as I ran toward it. The spatial loop was activating, trying to trap me. I stopped, turned around, started walking backwards. The effect was immediate and disorienting. The corridor that had seemed endless when I faced it now shortened when I walked away from it. Within seconds, I felt my back hit the turn I'd been trying to reach. Time check. Approximately 2:45:30. 30 seconds used, 90 seconds remaining. I navigated the turn, still walking backwards, and faced the stairwell. The door was open, and I could see stairs descending into darkness, but I could also see stairs ascending into more darkness. The building was showing me both options simultaneously, trying to confuse me about which direction was down. Margaret's notes had covered this. Trust gravity, not vision, she'd written. I closed my eyes, felt the pull of gravity indicating down, and started descending backwards, one careful step at a time. The stairs seemed endless. I counted steps, should be 18 steps per flight, 3 flights total, 54 steps to ground level. But I was at step 80 and still descending. The loop was stretching the stairwell, making it infinite. Keep going, don't stop. The moment I stopped to question, I'd be trapped. Step 96, 100, 120. Then my foot touched level ground. I'd reached the bottom. Time check, approximately 2:46:15. 45 seconds remaining. 30 seconds until the fire alarm. The ground floor lobby was full of echoes. Dozens of people in FBI attire from different eras, all walking in slow circles, all murmuring, "Still here, still here, still here." I recognized Jerry among them, and the agent from 1993, and Margaret, her echo, not the conscious version I'd left in office 347. The echo Margaret turned to me, her face expressing the confusion she must have felt 52 years ago. "Agent Carter, what's happening? I keep hearing voices. My own voice telling me I'm still here, but I don't understand. I'm sorry," I said, pushing past her. "I can't help you. I have to go." The main exit was 50 feet away, glass doors leading to the parking lot, leading to freedom. But between me and those doors the echoes were gathering, forming a wall of bodies, all reaching toward me, all saying the same thing. "Stay. Join us. Still here. Forever." I checked my watch, or rather, my internal clock. 2:46:40. 20 seconds to the alarm. 5 seconds until the window opened. The lights flickered, once, twice. The fire alarm would sound any second now, and I needed to be moving during those critical 15 seconds from 2:46:45 to 2:47 ca. But the echoes were blocking the exit. I couldn't push through them. There were too many, and touching them risked getting tangled in their temporal loops. Then I remembered something Margaret had said. The building operates on perception. If the echoes were blocking my path because I perceived them as solid, what if I changed my perception? I closed my eyes, focused on what I knew to be true. The echoes weren't real. They were just patterns, information, light and sound with no physical substance. They couldn't actually stop me. They were as insubstantial as shadows. I opened my eyes and ran forward, through the wall of echoes. And they didn't stop me. They flickered and distorted as I passed through them, their forms breaking apart like static on a television, but they couldn't hold me. 2:46:45. The fire alarm exploded into sound. Strobing lights activated. The building's electrical systems went haywire, exactly as Hayes had planned. The temporal loop flickered. Weakened by the disruption, I reached the exit doors, pushed them open, stepped out into nothing. Not the parking lot, not the Quantico grounds. Just void, empty space, like stepping out of the world entirely. I'd missed the window, or the building had tricked me, or the exit I'd reached wasn't the real exit, but another loop, another trap. Behind me, I heard it. The clock striking 2:47 ca. The moment of reset. The loop beginning again. The door I'd come through vanished. I was standing in a space that shouldn't exist. A gap between moments, between realities. And around me, the echoes were appearing. All of them, every person who'd ever been trapped in the Quantico loop. Hundreds of figures, maybe thousands, all staring at me with hollow eyes. "Welcome," they said in unison. "You're still here now. You'll always be still here. Join us. Join the loop. Join eternity." No, this wasn't right. I'd done everything Margaret said. I'd followed the path, timed it perfectly, pushed through the echoes. I should have made it out. Unless the diagram had been wrong. Or I'd been given false information. Or Margaret had lied. Or I'd never been in office 347 at all. Maybe I'd already been in the loop for hours, days, years, experiencing a false memory of meeting Margaret, of learning the escape route. Maybe this was the loop, the eternal hope of escape followed by the crushing disappointment of reset. I felt myself starting to panic, felt my grip on reality slipping. This was how it happened. This was how people became echoes. They lost track of what was real, lost their anchor to the present, and got absorbed into the pattern. But then I heard it. A voice, not the chorus of echoes, but a single, clear voice. Hayes, coming through the radio I'd forgotten I was carrying. "Agent Carter, can you hear me? The alarm worked. The temporal readings are dropping. The loop is weakening, but you need to move. You're between states right now, neither in the building nor out of it. You need to choose. Forward into the void or back into the loop. Make a choice now. Forward into the void, into nothing, into a space that shouldn't exist. Or back. Back to the familiar horror of the loop. Back to being still here. Forever." I thought about Margaret, about her 52 years trapped in that office, about her final words, "I believe in you." I stepped forward, into the void, into nothing, and fell, not physically falling, but temporally. I could feel myself moving through layers of time, through different iterations of the same moment, through the collected weight of 19,000 loops. I saw flashes of everyone who'd been trapped, their first moments of confusion, their growing horror, their eventual resignation. And then I saw something else. A light, faint but growing stronger. Not the fluorescent light of Building C, but something cleaner, purer. Daylight. I pushed toward it, swimming through temporal currents that tried to pull me back into the loop. Every second was agony. Every inch of progress felt like moving through concrete. But I kept pushing, kept focusing on that light. And then I broke through. I was standing in the parking lot outside Building C. The real parking lot. The sun was rising over the Quantico grounds, painting everything in gold. I checked my watch, 6:47 a.m., November 20th, 2025. I'd lost 4 hours. But I was out. I collapsed to my knees, gasping, shaking. Hayes's voice crackled through the radio. Agent Carter, do you copy? The readings say you're outside the building. Tell me you made it." "I made it," I managed. "I'm out." "Thank God. Stay there. I'm coming to you." While I waited, I turned to look at Building C. It looked normal in the daylight. Just an old administrative building, nothing sinister about it. But I knew better now. I knew what was inside, what was still inside. The echoes. Still there, still trapped, still repeating their moment at 2:47 a.m. I'd escaped, but they hadn't. And now they never would, because I was the one who was supposed to break the loop. I was the completion of Margaret's unfinished action. But I'd failed. I'd gotten out, but the pattern remained. Hayes arrived in a security vehicle, jumped out, ran to me. "Are you hurt? Do you need medical?" "I'm fine, physically. But Hayes, I didn't break the loop. The echoes are still in there." He helped me to my feet. "I know. I've been monitoring the readings. The temporal overlap is still active. Whatever you did weakened it temporarily, but it's stabilizing again. By tonight, it'll be back to full strength." So I failed. Margaret and all the others are still trapped. Maybe, or maybe you did exactly what you needed to do. He pulled out a tablet, showed me data I didn't understand. Look at this. The loop's frequency has changed. It used to reset at exactly 2:47 a.m. every day. But since you exited, it's been fluctuating. 2:46, 2:48, 2:44. It's becoming unstable, unpredictable. What does that mean? It means the pattern is breaking down, not all at once, but gradually. Your escape created a crack in the loop's structure, and that crack is spreading. I think if we give it time, the whole thing will collapse on its own. How much time? I don't know. Days, weeks, maybe months. But it will end. And when it does, the echoes will finally be free. I looked at Building C again. Somewhere in there, in Office 347, Margaret was experiencing her loop. Still typing her report. Still hearing footsteps in the hallway. Still trapped in October 15th, 1973. But now she had hope. Now she knew that an end was coming, that her granddaughter had made it out, that the loop wouldn't last forever. I pulled out the brass nameplate from my pocket. Sloan Carter, a name that existed in both 1973 and 2025. A name that connected me to this place across 5 decades. I'm going to keep this, I told Hayes, to remember, to make sure I never forget what happened here. What will you tell the Bureau? The truth, that there's something wrong with Building C, that it needs to be condemned, sealed permanently, torn down if necessary. Whether they believe me or not, I have to try. For Margaret. For all of them. Hayes nodded. I'll back you up. I have 52 years of documented anomalies, incident reports, testimony from dozens of affected personnel. Together, we might actually get them to listen. We drove away from Building C as the sun climbed higher. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Because if I looked back, I'd see them in the windows, the echoes, still there, still watching, still waiting. But not forever. Not anymore. The loop was breaking, and soon, very soon, they would all be free.